What's up, beloved? Welcome back to another episode. We're going to be picking up right where we left off with that 5-pack of new episodes, 341 to 345. We're picking up right where we left off. Pretty much 341 is now the best place to start on this podcast series, TPR. If you're new here, if you need a refresher, those 5-pack of episodes from 341 to 345 are super important. That's the best place to start. There's a lot of information in there. And now we are just continuing to build from those points. And so this episode specifically is going to build heavily upon the first episode of the 5-pack, 341. So this episode is definitely correlated with the 5-pack in general, but especially with TPR 341. So specifically towards the end of 341 and all throughout the episode, we were speaking about the feast days and the 3 times per year showing up to the Most High and the 3 times per day. And specifically in the last 40 minutes of TPR 341, we were speaking about the feast days, and I was saying, and what we are going to continue to build upon in this episode is that the feast days are synonymous with spiritual sacrifices. So in this episode, we are going to show how to keep the feast days in the 7th spiritual covenant through spiritual sacrifices. And really, in 341, we covered how somebody could essentially accidentally keep the feast days and the set apart days, whether you're aware of the calendar, totally unaware of the calendar, or anywhere in between. We showed about showing up 3 times per day makes you there 3 times per year for the Most High. So essentially in 341, we talked about how you could accidentally or unknowingly keep the feast days, the insurance policy, the backup plan, watching your back, showing up 3 times per day, has you there 3 times per year. And now in this episode, we're going to show how you can intentionally keep the feast days spiritually in the 7th spiritual covenant. And so the feast days are synonymous with spiritual sacrifices. So what we are going to go through in this episode is help all of us get out of this mindset of when you think about the feast days, when you think about Passover, what do you think about? Eating a lamb. When you think about unleavened bread, what do you think about? Eating unleavened bread. When you think about tabernacles, what do you think about? Sleeping in a tabernacle. And we showed and proved in that 5-pack of episodes, and even before that, that that's not what the feast days are about. The feast days are synonymous with spiritual sacrifices. And that's how we are going to show how you keep the feast days in the 7th spiritual covenant, is doing it spiritually through spiritual sacrifices. And essentially, if you are not engaging in spiritual sacrifices, then you're not engaging in the Passover, unleavened bread, tabernacles, any of the feast days, the Shabbat. We're going to get to that, and we've pretty much already proven it from 341 to 345, but we are going to continue to build and specify and simplify for you guys to continue to build and understand how to keep these set apart days spiritually. So just to go over some of the scriptures, and we're going to revisit these scriptures in this episode and continue to build. Romans 14, 17, and 18. For the kingdom of Elohim is not meat and drink, but righteousness and peace and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh. For he that in these things serves Mashiach is acceptable to Elohim and approved of men. So if you serve the Most High through Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest, in righteousness, peace, and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh, it's acceptable to the Most High, right? Righteousness is spiritual. Peace is spiritual. It's the peace offering like we covered in 341. And joy is spiritual in the Ruach HaKodesh, spiritual. For he that in these things serves Mashiach is acceptable to Elohim and approved of men. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, line 6, your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are matzah. For even Mashiach, our Pesach, is sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the matzah of sincerity and truth. Who is the truth? Yahushua HaMashiach. He's the way, the truth, and the life. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the matzah of sincerity and truth, spiritual, through the 7th covenant consecrated by the truth, Yahushua HaMashiach, right? So this tells us to keep the feast, but not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, spiritual, right? And this even says, purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are matzah, ye are unleavened bread. For even Mashiach, our Pesach, is sacrificed for us, right? So we are the unleavened bread. In 2 Peter, your body is the tabernacle. Shortly I must put off this my tabernacle. So in the Feast of Tabernacles, so-called, when it tells you to sleep in a tabernacle, how are you going to go sleep in a tabernacle when your body is the tabernacle? Or in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when it tells you to eat unleavened bread, how are you going to eat unleavened bread when you are the unleavened bread? We are living sacrifices to the Most High in Romans chapter 12. 2 Peter chapter 1, 13 and 14. Yeah, I think it meet, as long as I am in this tabernacle, to stir you up by putting you in remembrance, knowing that shortly I must put off this my tabernacle, even as our Yahuwah Yahusha HaMashiach has showed me. So we've brought out all these scriptures before, explained it before, but your body is the tabernacle. So like I said, how can you sleep in a tabernacle if your body is the tabernacle? Know ye not that ye are the temple of the Most High? How can you eat unleavened bread during the feast day when you are unleavened bread? It's about spiritually becoming unleavened, and we're going to prove that even further and show what the feast days are truly about. But this is just re-establishing things that we've established many a times and just putting it on the forefront of your mind as we go through this episode even further. We're going to get back to this verse later on, but in Tobit chapter 12, so if the feast days are not, if the kingdom of Elohim is not food and drink, right? And in the kingdom, right, the seventh covenant is like to become switched to a spiritual body, Yah willing, to be like an angelic being. 1 Corinthians 15. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, which means die. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. And this corruptible must put on incorruption. This mortal must put on immortality, talking about a spiritual body. You become like an angelic being. The seventh spiritual covenant is like the first covenant. Adam was originally spiritual. He got brought into carnality when he ate the fruit. So he came in spiritual and left carnal. We came in carnal, and Yah willing are leaving spiritual. So the seventh covenant is like the first is like the seventh. So this is an angelic covenant. The Torah and Moshe's covenant, the sixth covenant, is a carnal covenant. It's an earthly covenant. It's not for the angels. It's for carnal men. So those that want to stay in the sixth covenant and try and keep the feast days according to the sixth covenant, which you're not even doing, you're tricking yourself into thinking that you are. And we've all been there. And we explained that in 341 and over the course of the 5-pack. Nobody is keeping the Torah. People are tricking themselves into thinking that they are. And the only way to keep the Torah is to keep it spiritually. And James 2:10, for whosoever shall guard the whole Torah and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. For he that said, do not break wedlock, said also, do not kill. Now, if you do not break wedlock, yet if you kill, you have become a transgressor of the Torah. So James 2:10, for whosoever shall guard the whole Torah and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. So we covered in 341, if you can find anywhere in the Torah, any single thing in there, if you break one thing, you broke the whole Torah. And we showed how you can keep the Torah spiritually in 341. So the point is to elevate out of the sixth covenant, out of the Torah of carnality, and come into the seventh spiritual covenant and keep it spiritually like an angelic being. The angels, you don't have to tell an angel, don't eat pork, because they don't eat animals like that. You don't have to tell an angel not to fornicate or commit adultery, because they don't lie with earthly women. The carnal, the sixth covenant, the Torah, is not for angels, and it's not for us when we elevate to the seventh spiritual covenant to become like an angelic being.
To ever adhere to the rules of the covenant in earth, because it's not applicable. We said this on many occasions, right? The earthly covenant is not applicable to the angels. Why would you tell an angel don't eat pork? Angels like, I don't eat nothing down here. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we don't eat the dog food.
Right. Why would you tell an angel not to mingle his garment with things grown of the earth and things from animals? He's like, my clothing is light. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
All right. Tell him not to fornicate or to engage in adultery. He's like, I don't lay with earthly women. What are you? This covenant is not for angels, just like it is not for us when we convert into the heavenly covenant. That's why all the prophets from old were telling us, leave that earthly based covenant of Achaia. You are a child of the Most High. Then come into the covenant of Bikwa, or the heavenly Eth that was created from the beginning.
And so the kingdom of Elohim is not food and drink, right? The angels are already. So how does Michael keep the feast day? Do you think Michael is whipping up some unleavened bread in his kitchen saying, check out this recipe for unleavened bread? Do you think that's how Michael keeps the feast of unleavened bread? No, he does not. Do you think Michael pops a tent in the wilderness for the tabernacles and said, this is how we keep tabernacles? No, Michael doesn't do that. Angels don't do that. So if we want to be like carnal men in the sixth covenant, then yeah, go and pop a tent for tabernacles and go find the best recipe for unleavened bread. But that's not what the seventh spiritual covenant is. Aren't you trying to make the kingdom? The kingdom of Elohim is not food and drink. So if you're trying to make the kingdom doing in heavens as it is in earth, what? So Messiah told us in Matthew 6, let the Most High's will be done in earth as in the heavens. So if the kingdom is not food and drink, and Michael is not up there baking unleavened bread for the feast of unleavened bread, then why would you do it here? You're not doing what they're doing in heaven. You're doing something totally different down here in earth because the you-know-who's, the false religions told you to do it. Or you see everyone on social media in the awakening, quote unquote, doing it. But we are to elevate out of the sixth covenant into the seventh spiritual covenant. And so is Michael up there baking unleavened bread? No, he's not. What is Michael and Gabriel and Raphael and the angels doing up there? Let's go to Acts chapter 10. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian Band, a devout man and one that feared Elohim with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to Elohim always. He saw in a vision, evidently about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of Elohim coming into him and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Adonai? And he said unto him, Your prayers and your alms are come up for a memorial before Elohim. So the angel showed up to Cornelius at the 9th hour, the evening spiritual sacrifice, and told him that his prayers and his alms are come up for a memorial before Elohim. So the angel took his prayers and his alms, spiritual sacrifices, up to the Most High. They didn't take his unleavened bread up there. They didn't take a tent that he pitched in the wilderness for tabernacles up there. His prayers and his alms, spiritual sacrifices, came up as a memorial, as a sacrifice before Elohim. Tobit chapter 12, which we'll get back to later on in this episode and show a mind-blowing point, glory and praise to the Most High, Yah willing. Tobit chapter 12, line 15. I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels which present the prayers of the Kodeshem and which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One. Right? Raphael told Tobit and Tobias, which we'll get more to, I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels which present the prayers of the Kodeshem and which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One. He didn't present unleavened bread. He didn't present a tent. He presented prayers of the Kodeshem. That's what the angels do for us to allow us to worship the Most High like angels as they present our prayers. And that's how they worship the Most High, through praising the Most High. They don't whip up a batch of unleavened bread and say, here you go, Abba Yah, this is how we're worshiping you. Angels don't do that. They present the prayers of the Kodeshem in their own praise to the Most High, spiritual sacrifices in the kingdom, which is what we should be doing here. And as for the prayers of the Kodeshem, and that was Tobit, Old Testament Apocrypha, if you will. And then to go to Revelation chapter 5, line 8. And when he had taken the sepher, the 4 living creatures with 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the Kodeshem, right? The prayers of the Kodeshem in Revelation 5. And then in Revelation chapter 8, line 3 and 4. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all Kodeshem upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the Kodeshem ascended up before Elohim out of the angel's hand. So all throughout the scriptures, we are seeing this is how you worship the Most High, is your prayers and your alms being a living sacrifice. Your prayers ascend up to the Most High. All this carnality that people think. So again, people, when you think of Passover, people think eating a lamb. It doesn't say that lamb that you got from the grocery store. It's not a lamb without blemish that you got on the 10th day, kept it till the 14th, and then killed it. It's not that. It's just a lamb that you bought at the grocery store. Nowhere in the scriptures does it say the lamb that you ate from the grocery store is going to ascend up to the Most High. Nowhere does it say the unleavened bread that you ate is going to ascend up to the Most High. Nowhere does it say the tent that you're sleeping in is going to ascend up to the Most High. But what we have multiple witnesses of is your prayers are memorials and spiritual sacrifices that will ascend up to the Most High. The seventh covenant is to be like an angelic being. And right now, the angels and Messiah Messiah perfects our spiritual sacrifices. He's our high priest. And the Messiah and the angels present our prayers to the Most High. That is how you worship him. That is how you keep the feast days, is spiritually. And the feast days are synonymous with spiritual sacrifices. And we're going to go into the Torah and show, even in the sixth covenant, that there's all these sacrifices that take place on the feast days that people and now that think they're in the seventh covenant are apparently just skipping on over. So let's get into that right now and show how you keep the feast days spiritually and intentionally like an angel based upon what we just covered, right? So Numbers chapter 28, we're going to go through Numbers 28 and 29, and this will show you in the Torah spiritually how you do it. And I'll simplify it as well, but let's just continue to build. Numbers chapter 28, line 1. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Command the children of Yasharel, and say unto them, My offering and my bread for my sacrifices made by fire, for a sweet savor unto me, shall ye guard to offer unto me in their appointed time. And let's keep in mind James 2:10, where it says, if you keep the whole Torah, yet if you offend in one point, you're guilty of the whole Torah. So like we covered in the 5-pack of episodes, specifically in 341, people online in the echo chambers are saying, keep the law, statutes, commandments. We keep the Torah. So let's confirm the people that think they're keeping the Torah, not spiritually, but half and half. Oh, we believe in Messiah, but we're still keeping the Torah. No, you have to fully elevate into the 7th spiritual covenant and do it fully spiritually. So as we go through these verses, those of you that think and are espousing, we keep the Torah, we keep the law, statutes, commandments. If any one of these things is not met, then you broke the whole Torah. And we've all been there. We've all said, just keep the Torah, keep the law, statutes, commandments. We've all been there, but the point is to grow. The point is to be humbled and elevate to the 7th spiritual covenant, Yah willing. Let's continue right along. And you shall say unto them, this is the offering made by fire, which ye shall offer unto Yahuwah. 2 lambs of the first year without spot, day by day, for a continual ascending smoke offering. Mic drop, here we go. So anybody that's saying, just keep the law, statutes, commandments, keep the Torah. Who's doing that? Who's offering up 2 lambs of the first year without spot, day by day, for a continual ascending smoke offering? On the specific altar, how it was described. You can't just go in your backyard and make your own altar or fire up your grill and go buy lamb from the grocery store and say, oh, this is the lamb every day. No, you have a specific altar. Let's get that as well. Exodus 27:1. And you shall make an altar of shittim wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits broad. The altar shall be 4 square, and the height thereof shall be 3 cubits. You can't just make an altar however you want. You can't just go and do physical sacrifices however you want. We said in 344, Lifetime Foundation, Spiritual Bloodlines 2, that the Most High himself moved on from the 6th covenant. The Most High doesn't want physical sacrifices anymore. He wants us to do it in the 7th spiritual covenant. He moved on. And I said this example, it's like he has a new phone number. In the 6th covenant, when he wanted physical sacrifices, you would, by offering up a physical sacrifice, that was like calling the Most High on this number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He would answer that call through a physical sacrifice. He doesn't have that phone number anymore. He gave us a totally new covenant, the seventh spiritual covenant. He has a new phone number. So people are still trying to call that old phone number. He doesn't answer that anymore. He has a totally new number. 555-1234 is his new number, for example. So your people are calling the old number, the sixth covenant. He doesn't answer that anymore. It's like he moved. You're writing him letters to his old address. He doesn't answer the sixth covenant anymore. He doesn't want physical sacrifices. All throughout the scriptures, he says, your sacrifices are an abomination. Your feast days are, we destroyed that sixth covenant. That house burned down. That marriage contract got destroyed. Most High gave us a new marriage, the seventh spiritual covenant. He says, this is how I want you to worship me in the seventh spiritual covenant. Is we're supposed to do it through spiritual sacrifices because that's what he told us to do. We're not supposed to be holding on to the old marriage contract that has been broken. That house burned down. The Most High moved out of that house. He said, I destroyed this house because you guys couldn't keep it. Now I build a new house, build up a spiritual house. 1 Peter 2:5, spiritual sacrifices. And the Most High said, this is what I want you guys to do. So you can't just do it however you want. You can't just try and cleave to that old covenant. You're not supposed to do that. 1 Peter 2:5, ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim by Yahushua HaMashiach. Line 9, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim by Yahushua HaMashiach. The Most High has built up the seventh spiritual covenant. It's a new spiritual house. He has a new address and he says, come here and worship me through spiritual sacrifices. And people are going to the other house that was burned down to the ground and saying, all right, let's do some physical sacrifice. That house got burnt down. The Most High doesn't live there anymore. That's not his phone number. That's not his address. That's not his house. He moved to a new house, a spiritual house, a new address, and he has a new phone number. And he says, this is how you reach me in the seventh spiritual covenant, is through spiritual sacrifices through Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest. Ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim by Yahushua HaMashiach. Right, so let's get back to Numbers chapter 28, and again, showing what the feast days are truly about, and showing how people are not keeping the Torah. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, command the children of Yasharel, and say unto them, my offering and my bread for my sacrifices made by fire for sweet savor unto me shall ye guard to offer unto me in their appointed time. And you shall say unto them, this is the offering made by fire which ye shall offer unto Yahuwah, 2 lambs of the first year without spot day by day for a continual ascending smoke offering. The one lamb shall you offer in the morning, and the other lamb shall you offer at evening. Right? So who's doing that physically? Nobody is. You have to have the specific altar. You have to have Levites. You have to have the tabernacle, the temple, exactly how it was described. You can't just go out into your backyard and throw a piece of meat on the grill and think that you're keeping the Torah, because if you break any one of these things, you broke the whole Torah. Nowhere in the Torah does it say just do it to the best of your ability. Nowhere does it say just rig something up in your backyard, make a makeshift altar, or just throw food on the grill and burn something up in your apartment in your oven as a burnt offering. Nowhere does it say that. There was all these specifics, and the reason why there's all the specifics is because we're supposed to read this and say it's impossible for us to do this. Let's move on to the seventh spiritual covenant. That is literally the point. You're not supposed to be able to do it. You're not supposed to trick yourself and say, oh, I could just throw meat on my grill and burn it up and think that's a sacrifice acceptable. It's actually provoking the Most High, because he doesn't want that. He's saying, I want spiritual sacrifices, and by us trying to do physical sacrifices, you're provoking him because you're not giving him what he actually wants. He's saying, I want a spiritual sacrifice. I want your prayers and your alms, and for you to be a living sacrifice. That's what he wants. So as we go through these chapters, Numbers 28 and 29, it's going to show that people are not keeping it physically. And every single one of these things, we are going to show that we are doing it spiritually in the seventh spiritual covenant. I'm not saying get rid of the Torah. I'm saying you do it spiritually. And you shall say unto them, this is the offering made by fire, which ye shall offer unto Yahuwah, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, day by day, for a continual ascending smoke offering. The 1 lamb shall you offer in the morning, and the other lamb shall you offer at evening. So how are we keeping that in the 7th spiritual covenant? 341 through 345, the times of prayer, morning, noon, and evening. The 1 shall you offer in the morning prayer, the spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua HaMashiach. When you give a sin offering, trespass offering, and a peace and thanksgiving offering, you do it in the morning and evening, the 3rd hour, the 9th hour, which we'll talk more about the times of prayer. But we are offering up this daily spiritual sacrifice every single day, morning and evening, through our prayers, through our words. And even in the Old Testament, Hosea chapter 14, 1 and 2. O Yasharel, return unto Yahuwah Elohaka, for you have fallen by your iniquity. Take with you words and turn to El Yahuwah. Say unto him, take away all iniquity and receive us graciously. So will we render the calves of our lips, right? This is Old Testament too. Take with you words, your prayers, your words, and turn to El Yahuwah. Say unto him, take away all iniquity and receive us graciously. So will we render the calves of our lips. So every day, morning and evening, we are offering up the calves of our lips, the spiritual sacrifice, fulfilling this daily sacrifice that happened morning and evening. All right, so let's keep going in Numbers 28. We left off at line 4. The 1 lamb shall you offer in the morning, and the other lamb shall you offer at evening, which is the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest, the calves of our lips. And a 10th part of an ephah of flour for an oblation mingled with the 4th part of a hin of beaten oil. It is a continual ascending smoke offering, which was ordained in Mount Sinai for a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto Yahuwah, right? So for those who are saying, we're keeping the Torah, we're keeping the laws, statutes, commandments, right? This is a continual ascending smoke offering, which was ordained in Mount Sinai for a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto Yahuwah. So who is doing that every single day? Physically, you have to do it spiritually. The only way to keep this stuff is to do it spiritually, because you don't have Levites, you don't have a temple, you don't have an altar. You cannot do it physically. You can't just do a makeshift version of it. You have to do it spiritually. Line 7, and the drink offering thereof shall be the 4th part of a hin for the 1 lamb. In the holy place shall you cause the strong wine to be poured unto Yahuwah for a drink offering. And again, to clarify, the Most High does not want you just going. By the way, you realize that the drink offerings were poured on the altar, right? They were poured out on the altar. They weren't poured out in the grass. The Most High does not want you going and buying a bottle of wine and pouring it out in the grass, thinking that's an appropriate drink offering. It was poured out on the altar. So again, do you have the altar exactly how it was described, of shittim wood, of 5 cubits long? No, you don't. You're not supposed to. So you don't just make your own altar and just get a wood plank and say, oh, here's my altar, or just pour it out in the grass. And I hope that you guys know that unless you're getting vegan wine, you realize that wine is mixed with swine and gelatin, right? You guys realize that, right? So unless you're getting a certified vegan wine, and they could just have a wine bottle where it doesn't even mention that there's swine or gelatin in it. So you don't even know. So unless it's certified vegan and they're telling you it's a vegan wine, for a lot of you guys that are doing physical sacrifices are going and buying wine with swine in it, pouring it out and thinking this is an acceptable sacrifice to the Most High. Absolutely not. You're actually enraging the Most High. You're actually provoking him. People are on lunar calendars, babbling up at the moon, enraging the Most High, and then pouring out a swine-filled bottle of wine in the grass, thinking that's a drink offering. That's enraging and provoking the Most High. And he's trying to tell you, all I want is a spiritual sacrifice. I want the calves of your lips. I want your prayers, your words, your alms. And people are ignoring that, having a zeal for Elohim, but it's not according to knowledge. And we said that phrase all throughout the 5-pack of episodes, and that scripture is in Romans chapter 10. We've covered that whole chapter many a times, multiple times on this podcast series. But in Romans 10 is where it says I bear them record that they have a zeal of Elohim, but not according to knowledge. People have a zeal for Elohim. Oh, we're eating unleavened bread. We're sleeping in a tent. We're doing physical sacrifices. You have a zeal for Elohim, but it's not according to knowledge. You're supposed to grow. You're supposed to be humbled. You're supposed to elevate to the 7th spiritual covenant and understand there's a way to do this stuff, to do it spiritually. It's not just to the best of your your ability. It's not just do what you can, do the best, make shift, make your own type of thing in your backyard. That's not what the Most High is so structured and ordered. All these meticulous details about the altar, the temple, everything, all the details, so meticulous. So why on earth would we think that you could just ignore all the details and just say, I'm going to just do it my own and just get a grill in the backyard and throw a piece of meat on it and think that's an acceptable sacrifice? Or just go buy any old bottle of wine and pour it out in the grass thinking that's an acceptable sacrifice when the drink offerings were poured out on the altar? And again, how are we keeping the drink offering spiritually? What did Messiah said to his apostles right before he consecrated the seventh spiritual covenant? He said, take this wine is going to be your new drink offering, and it's my blood. And take this bread as your new daily offering, and that's my body. So the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach, which consecrated the seventh spiritual covenant, that's our wine. That's our drink offering. The blood of Yahushua HaMashiach, he consecrated the seventh covenant with his blood. And we take our daily bread and Matthew 6, he said, give us this day our daily bread. Take your daily bread, which is the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice. Forgive us our trespasses and our transgressions. You do the sin and trespass offering morning and evening with the daily bread. We're consecrated in the seventh spiritual covenant. The covenant was consecrated through Yahushua Mashiach's blood. He said, my blood is wine, the wine of grapes, the drink offering. Spiritual, there it is. So we are keeping the drink offering spiritually through the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. We're keeping the daily burnt offering through the calves of our lips, our daily bread, the morning and evening daily spiritual sacrifice. So again, this is the facts and the proof right here. We're showing that every one of these details we're doing spiritually, and every one of these details, when you try and do it physically, you're ignoring all of this and just saying, well, we're keeping it. No, you are not. And we've all been there. No, we are not. We're keeping it spiritually. And the drink offering thereof shall be the fourth part of a hin for the one lamb. In the holy place shall you cause the strong wine to be poured unto Yahuwah for a drink offering. And the other lamb shall you offer at evening as the oblation of the morning, and as the drink offering thereof you shall offer it a sacrifice made by fire of a sweet savor unto Yahuwah, the calves of our lips, morning and evening every day, without fail. And on the Shabbat, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2/10 deals of flour for an oblation mingled with oil, and the drink offering thereof. This is the ascending smoke offering of every Shabbat, beside the continual ascending smoke offering and his drink offering, which means in addition to. So again, this is why we're going through this, is for the Shabbats and the feast days. So every single day you do the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice prayer. And then on the Shabbat and on the feast days, there's additional spiritual sacrifices that you do. And so again, if you're not offering up a Shabbat spiritual sacrifice, you did not engage in the Shabbat, because this says right here, and on the Shabbat, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2/10 deals of flour for an oblation mingled with oil, and the drink offering thereof. This is the ascending smoke offering of every Shabbat, beside the continual ascending smoke offering and his drink offering, which means in addition to the continual ascending smoke offering. So morning and evening, every day without fail, and on the Shabbat, you offer up the calves of your lips, the spiritual sacrifice, sin and trespass offering, peace and thanksgiving offering through Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest. And then on the Shabbat, you need an additional spiritual sacrifice, which could be the noontime prayer, or if you do it at morning and evening, you say to the Most High, Abba Yah, I'm offering up to you the Shabbat spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua HaMashiach. And that right there is how you engage in the Shabbat. And if you stay home from work, you don't do any work, you don't do any buying or selling, but you didn't offer up a spiritual sacrifice, you did not engage in the Shabbat. Just like if you don't offer up an unleavened bread spiritual sacrifice through your prayers and your words, you didn't keep unleavened bread. Or for the Passover, which we're going to get to, and which we covered in 341. This is how you keep the feast days. This is how you engage in a Shabbat. When you hear Shabbat, what do you think of when you think of Shabbat? You think of don't go to work, stay home. We should be working. We should be active on the Shabbat, because we are the royal priesthood. The Levites were offering up sacrifices all day on the Shabbat, and they were blameless, which we'll probably get to. They were working, doing the work of the Most High on the Shabbat. Now we are the royal priesthood. We should be active on the Shabbat, offering up spiritual sacrifices. So when you think of the Shabbat, what do you think of? Not working your job, not buying and selling. That's not the Shabbat. When you think of the Shabbat, you should think spiritual sacrifice, because today is the day that I have to give an additional spiritual sacrifice in addition to the morning and evening ones that happen every day. That's what the Shabbat is an additional spiritual sacrifice. And in the beginnings of your months, you shall offer an ascending smoke offering unto Yahuwah, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot. And 3/10 deals of flour for an oblation mingled with oil for 1 bullock, and 2/10 deals of flour for an oblation mingled with oil for 1 ram, and a several tenth deal of flour mingled with oil for an oblation unto 1 lamb, for an ascending smoke offering of a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto Yahuwah. And their drink offering shall be a hin of wine unto a bullock, and the 3rd part of a hin unto a ram, and a 4th part of a hin unto a lamb. This is the ascending smoke offering of every month throughout the months of the year. And 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering unto Yahuwah shall be offered beside the continual ascending smoke offering and his drink offering, which means in addition to it. So again, on the new month, you need an addition. So every single day of the year, you have the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice, peace and thanksgiving offerings, sin and trespass offerings, spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua Mashiach every single day of the year. And then on the Shabbat, you have an additional Shabbat spiritual sacrifice. And on the new months, you have an additional new month spiritual sacrifice. So again, when you think of a new month feast day, not new moon, new month feast day, what do you think of? Unless you're thinking of a spiritual sacrifice, that's what you should be. When you hear new month, you should think spiritual sacrifice. When you hear Shabbat, you should think spiritual sacrifice. When you think unleavened bread and Passover, which we're about to get to right here in Numbers 28, you should think of spiritual sacrifices. And if you don't offer up the spiritual sacrifices on those days, you did not engage in Passover, unleavened bread, new month, or a Shabbat. The feast days and set apart days are spiritual sacrifices. That is how you keep it. Right? And we showed how you do it in 341. And I just explained it, whether you do it in morning and evening alongside your morning and evening sacrifices, or you do it at noon, as long as you are doing it morning and evening, and then on a Shabbat, an additional one, and on a new month, an additional one, all of your spiritual sacrifices will be accounted for. And this is what engaging in the set apart days is. It's all spiritual sacrifices, right? And so line 16, we're continuing right along. And in the 14th day of the first month is the Pesach of Yahuwah. And we covered in 341 that the Pesach happened at the 9th hour. It happened at the evening sacrifice. So again, how do you engage in Passover is showing up on the night of Passover at the evening spiritual sacrifice and giving up a sin offering, trespass offering, and a peace and thanksgiving offering, and saying, Abba Yah, I'm here with the Pesach peace offering, spiritual sacrifice. I'm here with the Pesach spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua Mashiach. That is how you engage in Pesach, in Passover, is offering up a spiritual sacrifice at the evening prayer, the 9th hour on the night of Passover, on the evening of Passover. That is how you do it. It's not eating a lamb in your kitchen, because we covered in 341, and I'll put the clip in here, that the Passover happened at the evening sacrifice. So if you were not in the spiritual realm at the temple with the blood of the covenant, the 7 spiritual covenant consecrated by Mashiach on you, if you're not there, then you did not engage in Passover. But if you were there at the evening prayer at the spiritual temple, offering up a spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua Mashiach, then you get passed over because you showed up at the evening prayer. That's what Pesach is. It's not eating lamb. It's a spiritual sacrifice.
13th verse, the living blood of this lacham that they took out shall be for a sign upon your houses in the 9th hour of the evening watch. That's that atah. Is when you shall appear with the living blood of your that covenant that they took out as well. And then it says, in that 9th watch, the Pesach offering, no one in the 9th hour will be attacked by the destroyer. However, I will assault the primal people of Mizraim, of Egypt. So the Most High has given us clarity that we must be in the 9th lot. We must be found in there working. We must always be in there working the work of Abba Yahweh.
And in the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall matzah be eaten. So again, how are we keeping this in the 7th spiritual covenant? 1 Corinthians 5. Ye are matzah. We are the unleavened bread. So we are keeping every single whether you eat physical bread or not, you can eat no unleavened bread throughout this days of unleavened bread. And if you know that you are the unleavened bread and you take the leaven out of you, you know, in the scriptures, it says, take the leaven out of your house. Ye are the house of the Most High, the spiritual house, the tabernacle, the temple. You take the leaven out of you. That's how you're taking the leaven out of your house. That's how, again, why would you need to eat matzah when ye are matzah? Why would you need to sleep in a tabernacle when ye are a tabernacle? You sleep in a tabernacle every single night of the year. So why would you need to go pitch a tent to think that you're sleeping in a tabernacle? You are the tabernacle. Your body is a tabernacle. You sleep in it every single night of the year, and you are unleavened bread. So if you take the leaven out of you, you don't have to eat physical unleavened bread when you are unleavened bread. Just like you don't have to sleep in a physical tent when you are a tabernacle. And in the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall matzah be eaten, spiritually doing it. So again, people just check. So far in Numbers 28, this is line 17 that we just read. And in the 16 previous verses before that, we showed every single verse that we are doing it spiritually. For the people who think they're doing it physically, this is the first verse in Numbers 28 that people actually can do in the physical, is eating unleavened bread. But line 16, 15, 14, 13, all the way from line 1 of Numbers 28, nobody's doing it physically. And they're breaking every single one of that. Means they broke every part of the Torah. But we showed we're doing every single one of those lines spiritually, from the drink offering being the blood of Mashiach to the calves of our lips, the daily sacrifice, Shabbat spiritual sacrifice, new month. You can do it spiritually, but you can't do it physically. And this is the first line in here, Numbers 28, 17, where, okay, you could eat physical unleavened bread, but you've missed the previous lines all the way before that. In the first day shall be a holy assembly. You shall do no manner of servile work therein, which means don't work your job, if possible. But you shall offer a sacrifice made by fire for an ascending smoke offering unto Yahuwah, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram and 7 lambs of the first year. They shall be unto you without blemish. Right? So this is how you engage in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Is, again, people look at line 17 and say, we're eating unleavened bread. Well, what about the sacrifice that's supposed to happen on unleavened bread? In the first day shall be a holy assembly. You shall do no manner of servile work therein, but you shall offer a sacrifice made by fire for an ascending smoke offering unto Yahuwah, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram and 7 lambs of the first year. They shall be unto you without blemish. Where's that? You're just skipping over that? Honestly, and like we covered in the 5-pack, testing Christianity part 15 and all this foolishness, people saying, we're keeping the law, statutes, commandments. We're not being like Christians. You got to come out of Christianity. What do the Christians say? That the sacrifices are done away with? And what are the people in the so-called Torah community? Where's your sacrifice on the Shabbat, on the new month, on the Feast of Unleavened Bread? Where's your sacrifice? You're skipping over this and just saying, eat unleavened bread. Where's your sacrifice? Where is it? You sound like a Christian to me, saying, oh, well, just skip over that. We'll eat unleavened bread. No, you do it spiritually. You offer up a spiritual sacrifice. Line 22 and 23, and 1 goat for a sin offering to make an atonement for you. You shall offer these beside the ascending smoke offering in the morning, which is for a continual ascending smoke offering. So in addition to your morning spiritual sacrifice on the first day of unleavened bread, you offer up an unleavened bread spiritual sacrifice. 24, after this manner you shall offer daily throughout the 7 days the meat of the sacrifice made by fire of a sweet savor unto Yahuwah. It shall be offered beside the continual ascending smoke offering and his drink offering. So in addition to the continual morning and evening spiritual sacrifice, you also give up the unleavened bread spiritual sacrifice once per day for the 7 days of unleavened bread. So again, those of you that are eating physical unleavened bread, where is your sacrifice? Where is it? You're skipping over this part and just saying, okay, we're eating unleavened bread. And then saying we're keeping the Torah. You're skipping over the sacrifices because the feast days are spiritual sacrifices. That's what they are. It's your spiritual sacrifices. And on the 7th day, you shall have a holy assembly. You shall do no servile work. So this is how you engage in Passover and unleavened bread. On the evening of Passover, at the evening prayer, you offer up your sin and trespass offering like usual, your peace and thanksgiving offering like usual, and you say, Abba Yah, I'm here with the Pesach, Passover, spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest. And that is how you, and taking the leaven out of yourself throughout the whole first month and throughout all the year, you're dedicating yourself to the Most High for another year of worship, but that is how you do it. And then the next day is day 1 of unleavened bread, and whether you work your job or not, if you offer up on all 7 days of unleavened bread, the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice, sin and trespass offering, peace and thanksgiving offering. And then each of those days, whether you do it at noon, whether you do it at morning or evening or any time in those 3 times of prayers per day, throughout the days of unleavened bread, you say, Abba Yah, I'm here with my unleavened bread spiritual sacrifice to praise you during the feast of unleavened bread. That is how you engage in it, all the while taking the spiritual leaven out of you. And on the 1st and 7th day of unleavened bread, it says, don't work your job. But here's again, so if you have to work, this is how you are blameless, is every day, morning and evening, you offer up your sin offering and your trespass offering. So if you do have to work on the 1st day of unleavened bread or the 7th day of unleavened bread, in the morning prayer, you say, Abba Yah, I atone with a sin offering and a trespass offering, spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua Mashiach, because I have to work this day, even though it's a set apart day. And then when you get home in the evening spiritual sacrifice, Abba Yah, I offer up a sin and trespass offering through Yahushua Mashiach because I worked on this day. And that's how you will be profaning these set apart days, but being blameless. Just like I referenced earlier, Messiah, he said, did you not read what David did? David's covenant, the 7th spiritual covenant. And he said, or have you not read what the priests do? The priests profane the Sabbath every day, yet they are blameless. Let's get that. Matthew chapter 12. At that time, Yahusha went on the Shabbat through the fields, and his Talmudim were hungry, and began to pluck the heads of grain and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, your Talmudim do that at which is not lawful to do upon the Shabbat. But he said unto them, Have you not read at what David did when he was hungry, and they that were with him, how he entered into the house of Elohim, and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the Torah how that on the Shabbats the priests in the temple profane the Shabbats and are blameless, right? But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple, meaning Yahusha, right? So have you not read in the Torah how that on the Shabbats the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Why do the priests profane the Sabbath? Because they're working on the Shabbat. But why are they blameless? Because one, they're doing the work of the Most High, but even more importantly, they're offering up sin offerings, so they atone. So just like we covered in 341 and all throughout the 5-pack, Satan, Revelation 12:10, Satan accusing the brethren day and night. So this is what would happen is Satan would go to the court of the Most High, which we covered in 341. Satan is the prosecutor, Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest, is your defense attorney, and Abba Yahuwah is the judge. And in the court of the Most High, Satan goes and accuses us, and if we show up with a sin offering and a trespass offering through Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest, then we are blameless. We'll be accused by Satan, but we will be found innocent and be blameless. So Satan could go to the temple of the Most High and accuse the Levites and say they're working on the Shabbat, they're breaking your Sabbath, but they are blameless. Why? Because in their work, in their sacrifices that they were offering up, because offering up physical sacrifices was work. They were laboring, killing animals, doing the work, putting in work on the Shabbat. So Satan would accuse them and say they're working on the Shabbat, but the Levites, in their working, in their physical sacrifices, they were offering up sin offerings to burn up and trespass offerings to burn up the dark side spirit of sin. So they were always blameless. They got accused by Satan. They worked on the Shabbat, but they were not ever found guilty because they atoned through it through sacrifices. They were blameless. They were innocent. They were not guilty. Just like for you, if you work on the Shabbat or if you work on the 1st and 7th day of unleavened bread, you're profaning those days and Satan will accuse you. But if you show up morning and evening, you will be found blameless because you atoned through it, through a sin offering, trespass offering, through Yahushua Mashiach, the high priest. That is what Yahushua Mashiach is for. That is what it is to be the royal priesthood, in getting active every single day, taking your daily bread in the working of the Most High, the ascending daily continual spiritual sacrifice to the Most High. And then on the Shabbat, even if you're at work, but you still check in, that's what I'm saying is in the heavens, and we're going to show in Tobit, and we already showed the angels and the Messiah are presenting our prayers to the Most High. That's what they're presenting. They're not saying, look, they made a fire recipe of unleavened bread down there. They're not presenting that to the Most High. They're presenting the spiritual sacrifices. And like I said in 341, if you show up 3 times per day with a sin offering, trespass offering, peace and thanksgiving offering, morning, noon, and evening, all of your spiritual sacrifices, whether it's a Shabbat, a new month, and we covered it all more in details in 341, all of your spiritual sacrifices will be accounted for if you do that every single day, 3 times per day. Your spiritual sacrifices will be accounted for. And even if you have to work on the Shabbat, if you show up morning, noon, and evening with the sin offering, trespass offering, peace and thanksgiving offering, and the Shabbat spiritual sacrifice, then they take that spiritual sacrifice to the Most High and say, look, this brother was in captivity just like Daniel was. He prayed 3 times per day. We covered that in 341. Look, this brother is in captivity, but he still showed up with a spiritual sacrifice. And that is what the Most High wants, and say, look, he still gave me a spiritual sacrifice, even if you had to work. And you profaned the Sabbath, but you're blameless because you atoned through it, through the spiritual sacrifices, through Yahushua Mashiach, the high priest. And it's like that on the 1st and 7th day of unleavened bread. And any set apart day, you may profane it just like the priest in the Torah would profane it, but they were blameless because they offered up sacrifices to atone for it. Now we offer up spiritual sacrifices to atone for it. All right, let's keep going in Numbers chapter 28 where we left off. So far we went through every single day, the morning and evening, continual spiritual sacrifice, the Shabbat, additional spiritual sacrifice, the new month spiritual sacrifice, the Passover spiritual sacrifice, the unleavened bread spiritual sacrifice. So this is what I'm saying. All of these set apart days are spiritual sacrifices. That's what they are. And as long as you engage in the spiritual sacrifice, you kept these set apart days. And no matter what food you eat, no matter what work you do or don't do on these set apart days, if you do not offer up your spiritual sacrifices, you did not engage in the set apart days, the Shabbat, the new month, or any of the feast days. All right. Line 26. And in the day of first fruits, when you bring a renewed free offering unto Yahuwah in your Shavuot, ye shall have a holy assembly, ye shall do no servile work. So again, on the 15th day of the 3rd month is Shavuot, the renewed offering. And again, that is just the spiritual. You run up spiritual fruit, and we covered this in 341, all throughout the year. You don't just stop and end in Shavuot and first fruits. You run it up all throughout the year. But at that time, you offer up your renewed spiritual sacrifice to the Most High, saying, Abiyat's the feast of first fruits, Shavuot, and here's my renewed offering, spiritual sacrifice through Yahushua Mashiach. And you should have been running up spiritual fruit all throughout that time leading up to it. But you shall offer the ascending smoke offering for a sweet savor unto Yahuwah, 2 young bullocks, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year. And then 31, you shall offer them beside the continual ascending smoke offering and his oblation. They shall be unto you without blemish, and their drink offerings, right? So this is the spring, summer side of the feast. We just covered every day, the continual spiritual sacrifice, the Shabbat spiritual sacrifice, the new month, the Passover, the unleavened bread, and the Shavuot first fruits. Each of those days, it's just an additional on a Shabbat, it's an additional spiritual sacrifice. On a new month, it's an additional spiritual sacrifice. On the Passover, it's an additional spiritual sacrifice. On the 7 days of unleavened bread, it's an additional spiritual sacrifice. On the 15th day of the 3rd month for Shavuot, it's an additional spiritual sacrifice. That's how you engage in it. And if you show up 3 times per day, even if you're unaware of these days, but you are aware of, or if you are aware of them, that's how you keep it, and it's accounted for spiritually. Now in chapter 29, we're about to get to the fall feast days, and it's the same exact thing. And if you want to understand more about the feast days, check out TPR 269, Feast Days Visual Breakdown, because that shows a visual representation. The feast days are so simple. It's the first month, which we just covered, and then the 7th month, which we're about to cover, and in the middle of that was Shavuot first fruits, which we just covered as well. Each of those days just giving an additional spiritual sacrifice. And we'll go through the dates as well and the calendar a little bit in this episode as well. But I'm just trying to show you, hopefully you're seeing and it's clicking in your mind that the feast days are spiritual sacrifices. That's what they are spiritually. All right. Let's get to the 7th month, Numbers chapter 29. And in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have a holy assembly. You shall do no servile work. It is Yom Teruah unto you. And you shall offer an ascending smoke offering for a sweet savor unto Yahuwah, 1 young bullock, 1 ram, and 7 lambs of the first year without blemish. Right? So, and then line 6, beside the ascending smoke offering of the month and his oblation, and the daily ascending smoke offering and his oblation, and their drink offerings, according unto their manner for a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto Yahuwah. So, just like you do every new month, you offer up the additional new month spiritual sacrifice on the new month of the 7th month, just like you do on the new month of the 1st month. And then line 7, and ye shall have on the 10th day of the 7th month a holy assembly, and ye shall afflict your souls, ye shall not do any work therein, but ye shall offer an ascending smoke offering unto Yahuwah for a sweet savor, 1 young bullock, 1 ram, and 7 lambs of the 1st year, they shall be unto you without blemish. Line 11, 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, beside the sin offering of atonement, and the continual ascending smoke offering, and the oblation of it, and their drink offerings. Right? So on the 10th day of the 7th month, the Day of Atonement, it says don't work your job. And again, in addition to the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice, sin and trespass offering, peace and thanksgiving offering, you give up an additional one on the Day of Atonement and afflict your soul spiritually. And on the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy assembly. You shall do no servile work, and you shall keep a feast unto Yahuwah 7 days. So this is the same exact thing as what you do in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Each of these days of tabernacles, so-called, you have the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice and the additional tabernacle sacrifice. And you shall offer an ascending smoke offering, a sacrifice made by fire of a sweet savor unto Yahuwah, 13 young bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of the 1st year, they shall be without blemish. Who's doing that physically? No, you do it spiritually through your prayers and your words. And then from line 17 on, it goes through each of the days. It says, and on the 2nd day, you shall offer 12 young bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of the 1st year without spot. And then line 20, and on the 3rd day, 11 bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of the 1st year without blemish. And it goes through each of the days of tabernacles, and it's just telling you what sacrifice to offer. So you give up an additional sacrifice in addition to the morning and evening that you do every day. On the days of tabernacles, you offer up this additional spiritual sacrifice. On the 8th, line 35, Numbers 29, on the 8th day you shall have a solemn assembly, you shall do no servile work therein, but you shall offer an ascending smoke offering, a sacrifice made by fire of a sweet savor unto Yahuwah, 1 bullock, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the 1st year without blemish. You do it spiritually. Line 39, these things you shall do unto Yahuwah in your set feasts, beside your vows and your free will offerings, for your ascending smoke offerings, and for your oblations, and for your drink offerings, and for your peace offerings. And Moshe told the children of Yasharel according to all that Yahuwah commanded Moshe. So again, that right there just showed that the feast days are extremely simple. Every day of the year, you have the continual spiritual sacrifice, morning and evening. On the Shabbat, you do an additional Shabbat spiritual sacrifice. On a new month, you do an additional new month spiritual sacrifice. On the evening of Passover, you have an additional Passover sacrifice. On the 7 days of unleavened bread, you have an additional unleavened bread spiritual sacrifice. On the 1st day of the 7th month, it's a new month, so you have an additional new month spiritual sacrifice. On the 10th day of the 7th month, the Day of Atonement, you have an additional spiritual sacrifice. And on the 8 days of Tabernacle, so-called, each of those days, you have one additional spiritual sacrifice in addition to the continual morning and evening one. That is how you engage in the spiritual sacrifices. And that's what we proved in 341. If you show up 3 times per day, even if you're totally unaware of those days and you don't know it's tabernacles or you don't know it's unleavened bread, if you show up 3 times per day, Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest, will take your spiritual sacrifices, because all that was required in the Torah was morning and evening every day. So 2 out of the 3. What is that third noontime prayer for? Seemingly ambiguous. That is to cover you. So if you had no clue it was unleavened bread, Messiah will take your noontime prayer and say, I make this the unleavened bread sacrifice for today. Or if it's a Shabbat and you don't know about it, Messiah will take that and say, I make this into the Shabbat spiritual sacrifice today. Or if it's a new month and you don't know it's a new month, Messiah will take that and say, I make this into the new month spiritual sacrifice for today. Or if it's Day of Atonement or Tabernacles or trumpets or anything like that, Messiah will take that third noontime one and say, I make this into whatever it needs to be today. That's what the high priest is for. So that's how we showed in 341. You could keep all these days accidentally just by showing up 3 times per day, and then intentionally, that's how you do it as well, is just clarifying, saying today is unleavened bread, so Abba Yah, I'm offering up to you the unleavened bread spiritual sacrifice. Or today is a Shabbat, so Abba, I'm offering up to you the Shabbat spiritual sacrifice. Or it's a new month, Abba, I'm here with the new month spiritual sacrifice, in addition to my morning and evening regularly scheduled program spiritual sacrifices, like we covered in 341. So let's go through the calendar a little bit as well. And we spoke more about the calendars in the 5-pack of episodes, specifically in 343, Spiritual Universal Laws. In the beginning of that episode, in the first 40 minutes or so, we spoke about the calendars then. The calendar that we've been on for now over 3 years is the 364 Enoch solar calendar, enochcalendar.com. There's a 10-year spreadsheet, and we explain why we're on this calendar. My calendar episode explaining it is TPR 229, remain set apart. And those that are wise and understand that it's not a lunar calendar and that it's not the Saturday Sabbath in the Gregorian calendar, it is a solar calendar. And it's not even to say, like we covered in 343, it's not even to say this calendar is 100% right. All I do know is that the Most High showed this calendar is good. And there's a 10-year spreadsheet for it. Print out the 10-year spreadsheet. You have it in a hard copy, a piece of paper, because the dates will be the same every year. So this is what the conclusions that I've come to and what we've understood about the calendar is. This is how the calendar works. The so-called spring equinox will be on March 20th every year. Every year, March 20th will be the spring equinox, so-called. And then the day after that starts day 1 of the first month. And then you just go for 364 days after that. So literally, as for this solar calendar, March 21st will be the first day of the year every single year into perpetuity on this calendar. So this is how you can remember it, is March 21st is the first day of the first month, and it's 3/21, right? March 21st, 3/21, which is like 3/2/1. It's like a countdown. That's the first day of the year. It'll always be on March 21st. That's the first day of the year, and then you go for 364 days, and then you get to March 20th, which is the spring equinox, and then the next day, March 21st, you start all over again. Day 1 and go for 364 days. That's how simple the calendar is. And that's how it goes. And the other way that you can remember it too is Passover will always be on this calendar on April 3rd, which is the evening of April 3rd, which is 4/3. 4 plus 3 equals 7. 7 is like a perfect number of Yah, if you will. So it's fitting that Passover is on 4/3 on this calendar equals 7. That's an easy way to remember it. So the spring equinox will always be March 20th. And then the next day after that, March 21st, is the first day of the first month. 3/2/1. It's like a countdown, a perfect day to start the year. Passover always happens on the evening of April 3rd, 4/3. 4 plus 3 equals 7. Perfect again. And it's 364 days. And the first Shabbat of the year will always be on March 24th. So 3 days after the first day of the year. So the first day of the year will be March 21st every year. And then the next day, 22nd, 23rd. And then the 24th is the 7th day Shabbat. And then every 7 days after that for the whole year, that is when the Shabbat is. So I'm not going to go through the dates of Passover and unleavened bread and all that stuff. You have to learn it for yourself. EnochCalendar.com. Print out the 10-year spreadsheet and just understand it's that simple. The spring equinox is March 20th. The day after that starts day 1 of the first month. You go 364 days, and then you'll end up at March 20th again, and then you restart the calendar March 21st and go 364 days. Very simple. And that's the point of the simplistic spiritual solar calendar, is that you have one day for the spring equinox to observe and say, this is the equinox. And then the next day, you're right back to worshiping the Most High. You're not every month or every night looking up at the stars and looking up at the moon and trying to observe the luminaries. You have one day for the spring equinox where you, quote unquote, observe something in nature, and then you're right back to worshiping the Most High, which is what the Most High wants. The Most High has showed that this calendar is good and pleasing to the Most High. It's not provoking to him. The lunar calendars are provoking and enraging the Most High. The Gregorian calendar is not good. The solar calendar is good and pleasing, and myself and other people can say the same thing, that we've been blessed on this calendar. When people get off of it, they get wrecked. When people leave it to go to lunar calendars, they certainly get wrecked. And every person that I've seen get on this calendar has not gotten worse off, and many people have gotten better on this calendar. So print the 10-year spreadsheet so that you have it. It's very simplistic. The dates will be the same every single year, like the first day of the year, the spring equinox. It's always the same. It's super simplistic. One day for the spring equinox, and then you're right back to worshiping the Most High. So that is how you do it. And if you want to hear more about it, TPR 229, Remain Set Apart, and more recently, TPR 343, Spiritual Universal Laws, is when I was speaking about the calendar. And if you know, you know. I'm not going to debate and say why you should be on this calendar. If you know, you know. And honestly, I said last year, at this time last year, I said, in 2024 to 2025, I said this was a great year to get on the calendar. Why? Because the Shabbat was on Sunday this past year. So I said this is a great year for you guys to try out the calendar. I said if you're already on the Saturday Sabbath, it's only pushing it back one day to Sunday. I said this would have been a great year to do it. And now that year is over. And now the Shabbat is moving to Monday, right? So again, you could have a zeal for Elohim and say, I want to keep the Shabbat on Saturday. But when you have a zeal according to knowledge, then you might have to chalk it up and say, you know what, I have to work on Monday, but guess what? I'm going to be there morning and evening and with my Shabbat spiritual sacrifice to give up every week the Shabbat spiritual sacrifice and every day the sin and trespass offering. So you might profane the Sabbath, but if you offer up a sin and trespass offering, you will be blameless. But you have to humble yourself to say, you know what? Saturday isn't the Sabbath. It's not the Gregorian calendar. It's not what the you-know-who's doing. It's not the lunar calendar. You have to humble yourself to get to that point, and the Most High will be pleased. But if you keep puffing yourself up saying, I'm keeping the Sabbath on Saturday, it's on Saturday, then you're actually just going to continue to provoke the Most High. Whereas he would rather you just be humble and say, you know what, I'm in captivity. I have to work on Monday, but I'm going to be there morning and evening, atoning for it. There was sin and trespass offering, saying, Abba, I know I profaned your Sabbath by going to work, but please let me be blameless through Yahushua HaMashiach with the sin and trespass offering. And I'm here with my Shabbat spiritual sacrifice. So all my daily sacrifices and Shabbat spiritual sacrifices and monthly and feast day sacrifices are all accounted for through Yahushua HaMashiach, because that's what the Most High actually wants. If you know, you know. It's simple. So, like I said, I told you guys a year ago that it would have been a great year to get on the solar calendar, and now it's going to Monday. So you have an option. You can either just keep going with the same thing that's not really working and tricking yourself and just, oh, it's working, or you could try something new and let the Most High show you that the solar calendar is good and pleasing and not provoking to the Most High. He will show you like he showed me and showed others. All right, all praise to the Most High. If you know, you know. Hallelujah and Amen. EnochCalendar.com. It's also in my link tree, which is linktree.com/WilsonRyan__. I have the link to the calendar and the link to the times of prayer. So let's talk a little bit more about the times of prayer as well. So in the spreadsheet for the times of prayer, again, linktree.com/WilsonRyan__. You can see the spreadsheet for the times of prayer in addition to the calendar. And in the spreadsheet for the times of prayer, we have documented each month how the times of prayer slightly change. And it's according to East Coast time, and it's very approximate. And again, the episodes where we brought it out was TPR 259, spiritual sacrifices meets spiritual warfare, TPR 260, structured spiritual sacrifices, TPR 265, hours of prayer, CPR 304, times of prayer and more. And then the 5-pack of episodes, 341 to 345. That is the progression approximately of how we brought it out. And when I was first bringing it out in 260 and 265, I think in 260, I told you how I was arriving at concluding the times of prayer. And I told you guys then, I said, these are just approximate. And I gave a bunch of options in 260. I said, if you want to keep the times of prayer just by going 9, 12, and 3 every day, 9 a.m. for the morning, 12 noon for the noontime prayer, and 3 p.m. for the evening spiritual sacrifice. If you want to do that, go ahead. I said that in 260. I said, find what works for you, what makes the most sense according to your schedule, and experiment for yourself. I always say a lot of the walk is trial and error. So if you want to do it at the time, and why am I doing it according to the times in the spreadsheet is because literally each month, as I was observing the new times and doing the times of prayer, literally every single month, the Most High confirmed each month that those times of prayer that I put in the calendar in the spreadsheet, the Most High confirmed that these times of prayer were good and pleasing to the Most High. And I was seeing angels. I was seeing miracles. I was seeing answered prayers. So just like the Most High told me that the 364-day Enoch solar calendar is good, the Most High told me that all of those times of prayer in the spreadsheet are good and pleasing to the Most High. So, and just like with the solar calendar, people that get on the solar calendar can say the same thing, that they've seen answered prayers. They've been blessed. They've seen miracles. They've seen blessings. They've been at peace. The Most High has confirmed to them that it's good and pleasing. And same thing with the times of prayer. There's people who do it according to the spreadsheet, just like I do, and they can say that they've seen miracles. They've seen answered prayers and everything like that. But if you don't want to do it according to those times, then do 9, 12, and 3, or find some method that works for you. But as far as East Coast time, and to do it when me and others are doing it, follow along in the spreadsheet. And if you have to, I said in 260, go and listen. That's when I first brought it out. I said, if you have to set alarms on your phone, just try, beloved, and you will be surprised that this is what the Most High actually wants. And that's why I do it according to those times, and they change approximately each month. And here's actually a reason why I think it's actually good that they change. Because if you just do 9, 12, and 3 all throughout the year, it's going to become very monotonous. So I actually enjoy that the times of prayer, because the times of prayer in the spreadsheet are essentially according to the sun and the times of light and dark throughout the year. So I actually prefer that. And again, the Most High told me these times are good, right? I actually prefer that each month the times of prayer kind of change and fluctuate, because it keeps you sharp. It keeps you continuing to seek the Most High. You don't want to just fall into a routine and monotony. And that's what people are doing with social media and everything. Just every day get on social media and they're just walking through the motions, sleepwalking. So if you just do 9, 12, and 3 throughout the whole year, it's going to become a little bit more monotonous, but I like that it always changes. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me seeking the Most High. That's part of what the times of prayer are for, is all throughout the day, you're thinking, when's the morning prayer? Then when that happens, you go, all right, when's the noontime prayer? Then after that happens, when's the evening spiritual sacrifice, right? It has you thinking about the Most High, seeking the Most High, continuing to seek Him, having Him on the front of your mind. And same thing for me, keeping me sharp throughout the months when they change. And I don't even set alarms. I just have them, glory and praise of the Most High. I just remember what they are. I say, oh, 10, 1, and 4, easy enough to remember. And then when they change or whatever, you grow and you remember what it is. But if you want to set alarms, you can. And I actually think it's beneficial. Again, this could be another reason why the Most High said these times of prayer are good. It's actually beneficial if it changes throughout the month a little bit, because then it keeps you sharp. It keeps you not just going through the motions, but keeping you continually wanting to seek the Most High and continuing to seek Him harder, 10 times more. So I actually think it's a good thing that they change. But if you want to just find your own or whatever, you can. And here's why I say that is because the morning, noon, and evening is the 3rd hour, 6th hour, the 9th hour. But morning, noon, and evening, each of those, there's 4 hours that are part of the morning, 4 hours that are part of the noon, and 4 hours that are part of the evening. So technically, the 1st hour, 2nd hour, 3rd hour, and the 4th hour is all the morning watch. So if you show up at any of those times in the 1st hour, 2nd hour, 3rd hour, 4th hour of the day, you showed up for the morning prayer. And then the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, all of those are the noontime prayers. So for me, yes, I try to show up at what I think is the 3rd hour based on what the Most High showed us according to the times in the spreadsheet. When it says morning, I believe that's when the 3rd hour is. When it says noon, I believe that's when the 6th hour is. When it says evening, that's what I believe the 9th hour is. But if you just show up at the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th hour, all of that is counted and is a part of the noontime watch. And then when you go to the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th hour, all of that is considered the evening watch. So if you show up at 3, 6, and 9th hour, that is best and blessed. But trust me, it's just as good I believe it'll be just as good if you show up anytime in the morning watch, anytime in the noontime watch, and anytime in the evening. So that's what I'm saying is if you want to do 9, 12, and 3, go ahead. And I feel like it will be just as fine. But the reason why I don't do that is because the Most High showed me the times that I observed each month throughout a course of a year. The Most High kept showing me it's good, confirming miracles, angels, blessings, mind-blowing things, not to mention the understanding that He's given us, glory and praise to the Most High. So why would I change? That's the problem, is people are not listening to the Most High. They're leaning on their own understanding. I'm not saying I need to figure out the exact 3rd, 6th, and 9th hour. I trust the Most High. He said these times of prayer are good. So I say less, praise the Most High. And I've seen the fruit. I've seen the angels. I've seen the miracles. I've seen the blessings. So why would I change it? Why would I start fishing for, I got to do something better? No, I'm trusting the Most High. He told me these times of prayer are good. Just like with the calendar, He told me the 364-day solar calendar is good. But people are leaning on their own understanding. Oh, I got to figure it out. I got to do it perfect. Most High doesn't, honestly, he doesn't even want you to be perfect. He wants you to do it correctly and listen to him. This is the problem is he said, guys, I burned down the sixth covenant. That house is burned down. Come to this. Think about it. He's saying, come to the seventh spiritual covenant. Come to this new house. So if you just show up at the new, like, what would the Most High rather you do? Would he rather you show up to his new house that he currently lives in and just say you're 10 minutes late, but you show up there? He's like, all right, good, you made it. Rather than if you never go to the seventh house and then you go to the old burned down remains of the sixth house and are like, I got to do it perfect here. Like, he's not even there anymore. All he wants you to do is show up where he wants you to listen. That's the biggest thing is he wants you to listen to him and be obedient. He's saying, come to my new house in the seventh covenant, show up to the spiritual house. That's what he wants. But people are leaning on their own understanding, saying, I got to figure out a perfect calendar. He doesn't even need you or want you to be perfect. He just wants you to be obedient. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And the irony is because I'm not saying the irony is we're talking about spiritual sacrifices. I'm not saying that's the irony. I just said it right there. I don't even have to explain it. That's the irony. Being obedient about the seven spiritual sacrifices and the seven spiritual covenant is better than a perfect sixth covenant sacrifice because he doesn't want that anymore. He wants you to do it in the seventh covenant. And when you do it in the seventh covenant, you don't have to be perfect. Why? Because Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest, he is perfect. This is exactly why. In the scriptures, he said, be ye perfect as I am perfect. In the Torah, you had Levites. They were not perfect men. They were carnal men just like me and you. That's why they needed to give up sacrifices for themselves because they were not perfect. So in the sixth covenant, you had imperfect men as the Levites. So they had to be perfect because nobody was perfect there. So they all had to do it for themselves. Now in the seventh spiritual covenant, you have Yahushua HaMashiach. You don't have Levites. You have Yahushua HaMashiach, the high priest, and he is perfect. He will be perfect for you. He will do the heavy lifting. He will perfect your spiritual sacrifices. You just got to do the simplistic obedience and listen to the Most High and trust him and fear him and praise him and show up every day. And Yahushua HaMashiach will do the rest because he is perfect. We're trusting in that perfection rather than our own. And here's the thing too with like the morning and evening. Think about if you had a court date, right? Just say they summon you to court and they say show up at 9 a.m., right? Which is the morning spiritual sacrifice, the third hour in the spiritual court of the Most High, right? But in the physical world, just say they say, come, you have a court date at 9 a.m. And if you show up, just say you're running late and you show up at 9:15 or 9:30 or even 10 a.m. or even 12 noon. If you show up and say, I'm sorry I'm late, but here I am, then they're going to be like, okay, good, you showed up. But imagine if you didn't show up at all throughout that day, then they're going to send out a warrant for you and say, come, go get you because you didn't show up to your court date. That's what we're doing in the spiritual realm when we never show up to the times of prayer. Satan is in that courtroom accusing us. And that's what I'm saying is if you show up 15 minutes late or 30 minutes late or an hour late, but you still made it to the morning watch. You say, Abiyah, I'm here at the morning watch. I know it's not the third hour, but I made it at the fourth hour. I'm here in the morning watch. Then Most High says, good, you showed up. Good job. But if you never show up and days pass and weeks pass, that's where you get into trouble, just like you would in the physical realm. If days and weeks pass and you never showed up to court, you would run into problems. But if you're 15 minutes late or 30 minutes late or an hour late, if you at least show up on that day, that's good. And they'll say, okay, you made it. But when weeks and days are passing in the spiritual realm, you never go to the court of the Most High. That's when you run into problems. So that's where you can understand about the times of prayer, morning, noon, and evening. And also, too, in the spreadsheet, I put the midnight prayer as well. So let's speak a little bit more about this. And the reason I put the midnight is for Psalms 119. Psalms 119:62. At midnight, I will rise to give thanks unto you because of your righteous judgments. So again, you can rise and give thanks, a thanksgiving offering, peace and thanksgiving offering, like we covered in 341. So the reason why that midnight prayer is in parentheses on the spreadsheet is because obviously what's really required of us, just like we saw in the Torah, Numbers 28, what is required of us is morning and evening continual ascending smoke offering every day is required morning and evening, right? So that is the third hour, the ninth hour, the court of the Most High, where you show up and plead your case every day, morning and evening, to praise the Most High and to atone, like we covered in 341. Then what is the noontime prayer? Like we covered earlier, is to watch your back for the Shabbat or for the new month or for Passover or unleavened bread or Shavuot or tabernacles or the Day of Atonement, those additional sacrifices to watch your back and cover you through each of those days. That's what the morning, noon, and evening is for. So those are what is really required and what the Most High wants from us. Now, the midnight one is not required. The reason I put it in parentheses is because like it's not required, quote unquote, like the morning and evening is required. And even the noontime is very good if we're there 3 times per day, meaning we'll be there for the 3 times per year. Deuteronomy 16:16. And in the true 10 commandments, shout out House of Wisdom, Exodus 34, speaks about the 3 times per year. That's why you show up 3 times per day, like we covered in 341. So the midnight, this is what so I just covered what the day watch is. I said 4 hours in the morning watch, 4 hours in the noon watch, and 4 hours in the evening watch. That's the day watch, 12 hours of prayer, quote unquote. And then there's the night watch as well. Now, in the very beginning, the Most High with Adam, right? I said Adam came in spiritual and he got brought into carnality when he ate the fruit. We came in carnal and Yah willing are leaving spiritual, right? We're going to get to the angels and get back to Tobit as well. But in the very beginning with Adam, the Most High mankind over the day watch, and the angels are over the night watch. So now in this time, Messiah is there for every lot, all 4 hours of the morning, all 4 hours of the noon, and all 4 hours of the evening, and all throughout the night watch. Messiah is there. And we're going to get more into this in my next episode, Most High willing, and what, like we covered in 342, spiritual revelations, the keys of David, the lots of David, the course of David. Messiah is standing at the door, the times of prayer. Every single hour of the day, Messiah is there. And there's angels over every hour of prayer, daytime and nighttime. That's why, like what we covered, the angels bring in our prayers to the Most High, and we're going to get more to that in Tobit. The angels take our prayers to the Most High. Messiah is our high priest. He perfects the spiritual sacrifices in our prayers and takes them to the Most High as well. So right now, there's angels and Messiah over every lot of the day watch and over every lot of the night watch. But in the beginning, when the Most High was first setting it up, he put mankind over the day watch and angels over the night watch. That's why the scriptures say, ye are the children of the day in Thessalonians, right? You're not of the night nor of darkness. Let's get that. And shows why it's not a lunar calendar. 1 Thessalonians 5. But of the times and the appointed seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. Meaning that the times and the appointed seasons, the feast days, it's not a lunar calendar. Why? For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of Yahuwah so comes as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober, meaning go to the watches, the times of prayer. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet the hope of Yeshua. For Elohim has not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain Yeshua by our Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach, right? So, ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. We're not supposed to be babbling at the moon and observing the moon. And that's why the Most High put the angels over the night watch, because the Most High doesn't want us out there observing the moon, observing the stars, stargazing like all the wicked people do. We're not supposed to be observing the luminaries at night, walking around at night. We are the children of the light, the children of the day. That's why it's a solar spiritual calendar, simplistic. It's a solar calendar because we are the children of the light, the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. So how could we be participating in a lunar calendar? You're not. And in Revelation, there will be no night there in the renewed Jerusalem. So if we're doing what's in heaven as in earth, in the new Jerusalem, which is coming out of the spiritual realm, there is no night there. So it's not a lunar calendar. We're the children of the day. So when the Most High was first setting up, he put mankind over the day watch and the angels over the night watch. That's why we're not supposed to be stargazing and peeking into the luminaries and stargazing and checking the moon and doing all that with the luminaries. That's why the Most High put the angels over the night watch and mankind over the day watch. That's why what is required of us is to show up morning and evening and the noontime. Come throughout the day watch every day, 3 times per day. You'll be there 3 times per year. Show up during the day watch. And like I said, now there's angels and the Messiah over every hour of the day watch and every hour of the night watch. But originally, mankind is over the day and the angels are over the night. That's why we are putting in work during the 3 times of prayers per day of the day watch. And so that's why I put that midnight verse. So if you find yourself awake and you're up at the midnight prayer and you want to get into the night watch, the midnight hour is a good watch of the night watch to get into. It's not required. You don't have to do it. But if you find yourself awake or there's a specific reason why you want to get into the night watch, that's why I have the midnight prayer on the times of prayer as well, because that's a good hour of prayer to get into. You could get into the night watch at the midnight hour, the midnight lot of the night watch, you know? So it's not required, but it's just in there. And it says, rise to give thanks to the Most High, give a peace and thanksgiving offering because of his righteous judgments. All praise to the Most High. Hallelujah and Amen. So now let's speak more about the angels as well. Since we just covered the night watch, the day watch, the angels, let's speak more about the angels. All right, so let's get back to Tobit chapter 12. And we read earlier, line 15, I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels, which present the prayers of the Kodeshem and which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One, right? So we could see here, the angels present the prayers of the Kodeshem before the Holy One, right? But let's prove everything that we've said essentially in this episode by Tobit chapter 12, this chapter, and what happened earlier in the chapter. Or earlier in the book. So before we get to that, let's read more context in Tobit chapter 12 here, and then we'll go back and see it actually happen. So Tobit 12, line 5. So he called the angel and he said unto him, take half of all that ye have brought and go away in safety. Then he took them both apart. So the angel Raphael is taking them both apart, which is Tobit and Tobias, the father and son, right? So the angel's about to take them apart and talk to them. And then we'll go back and see what happened in the story of Tobit. So Tobit 12:6. Then he took them both apart. The angel took Tobit and Tobias. Then he took them both apart and said unto them, bless Elohim, praise him and magnify him, and praise him for the things which he has done unto you in the sight of all that live. It is good to praise Elohim and exalt his name, and honorably to show forth the works of Elohim. Therefore be not slack to praise him. There you go. It is good to keep close the secret of a king, but it is honorable to reveal the works of Elohim. Do that which is good, and no evil shall touch you. Prayer is good with fasting and alms and righteousness. A little with righteousness is better than much with unrighteousness. It is better to give alms than to lay up gold. For alms do deliver from death and shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms and righteousness shall be filled with life. But they that sin are enemies to their own life. Surely I will keep close nothing from you, for I said it was good to keep close the secret of a king, but that it was honorable to reveal the works of Elohim. Now therefore, when you did pray, and Sarah, your daughter-in-law, I did bring the remembrance of your prayers before the Holy One. And when you did bury the dead, I was with you likewise. And when you did not delay to rise up and leave your dinner to go and cover the dead, your good deed was not hid from me, but I was with you. And now Elohim has sent me to heal you and Sarah, your daughter-in-law. I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels, which present the prayers of the Kodeshem and which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One. Then they were both troubled and fell upon their faces, for they feared. But he said unto them, fear not, for it shall go well with you. Praise Elohim therefore, right? So Raphael told Tobit and Tobias, but specifically to Tobit, now therefore, when you did pray, Tobit, and Sarah, your daughter-in-law, I did bring the remembrance of your prayers before the Holy One. And when you did bury the dead, I was with you likewise. And when you did not delay to rise up and leave your dinner to go and cover the dead, your good deed was not hid from me, but I was with you. So the angel took the prayers to the Holy One, to the Most High, and when he buried the dead, this good deed was not hid from the angel, because the angels are reporting this stuff back to the Most High. They're seeing our good and bad deeds, whatever we do and don't do. The angels are taking note and reporting this stuff to the Most High, right? So let's now go back and see about this burying of the dead that Tobit did, and why was this taken note of, right? And when you did not delay to rise up and leave your dinner to go and cover the dead, your good deed was not hid from me, but I was with you. So the angel took the prayers to the Most High and was taking note of these good deeds that Tobit did. And this is about to blow your mind and prove about the feast days, everything we said about how it's spiritual, right? So check this out. Let's go back now to Tobit chapter 2, right? And see the details, and then we'll bring it back to Tobit chapter 12. Tobit chapter 2. Now when I was come home again, and my woman Hannah was restored unto me with my son Tobiahu in the feast of Shavuot, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat, right? So Tobit's about to sit down for a feast day, the feast of Shavuot, and there's a good dinner prepared for him, right? And we saw in chapter 12, he's about to leave his dinner and do a good deed, right? This is all important. And when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, go and bring what poor man soever you shall find out of our brethren who is mindful of Yahuwah, and lo, I tarry for you. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled and is cast out in the marketplace. Then before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, your feast shall be turned into mourning, and all your mirth into lamentation. Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him. But my neighbors mocked me and said, this man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away, and yet lo, he buries the dead again. The same night also I returned from the burial and slept by the wall of my courtyard, being polluted, and my face was uncovered, right? So we could see that Tobit was about to sit down for the feast of Shavuot. There's a good dinner prepared for him, and his son tells him that someone was strangled. Then before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness. Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him, right? So now, in this, and again, we covered in the 5-pack, Tobit and Tobias were carried away to captivity. So they don't have a temple, they don't have a priesthood, and they were looking ahead to the 7th spiritual covenant, but Messiah hadn't come to consecrate the 7th spiritual covenant, so they're in this middle ground of the 6th covenant before the 7th covenant is consecrated, but they're looking ahead to the 7th spiritual covenant, right? So, to prove everything that I showed in this episode, that the feast days are spiritual sacrifices, not food, right? Tobit was in the feast of Shavuot, and there was a good dinner prepared for him, right? So when you think of the feast days, or previously thought of the feast days before this episode, when you think of Passover, do you think about eating food? Or unleavened bread, do you think about eating food? Or even the feast of Shavuot, right? Do you think about eating food? But clearly we can see what was really important. What did we see in chapter 12? The angel said, I took your prayers to the Holy One, and your good deed was not hid from me. He took note of his good deed, right? So let's get this straight. The angel took Tobit's good food for the feast of Shavuot to the Holy One, right? Nope, he took his prayers. the angel reported to the Most High and said, Abiyah, Tobit ate a fire great meal of good food on the feast of Shavuot, right? Nope. What the angel did take note of is that Tobit left his food. He left that good dinner for the feast of Shavuot, the feast of the Most High. Tobit left the food to go do something, and the angel reported that good deed to the Most High, not his good food. So this is how you can see is the angels are not reporting to the Most High and saying, this brother's in his kitchen making unleavened bread. This person's sleeping in a tent for tabernacles. That's not what the angels are presenting to the Most High. They're presenting your prayers, your spiritual sacrifices, which we covered Numbers 28 and 29. And this good deed, it was a good deed. So see, Tobit did something good by leaving his dinner and going and loving his neighbor as himself by covering up the guy that had died. So think about it. The two great commandments are love the Most High and love your neighbor as yourself, right? So couldn't Tobit have said, you know what, this feast of Shavuot is more important than my neighbor, so I'm going to eat my food first? But no, he left it because Tobit knew that the feast of Shavuot is not about this physical food that he's about to eat. The feast of Shavuot is about running up spiritual fruit. So by Tobit going and doing a good deed and burying his neighbor who had died, that was the spiritual fruit that the Most High wanted. The Most High didn't want Tobit's physical meal that he's sitting there eating and saying, this is what Shavuot is. Shavuot truly is spiritual fruit, and Tobit was gathering up spiritual fruit. That's why the angel said, I took note of when you left your dinner and went and buried this guy. The angel took note of that because that was spiritual fruit going to the Most High. Tobit was being the light of the world. He was being a living sacrifice. It's not about physical food by any means. And the proof is, if it was about physical food, Tobit would have said, I got to keep this feast of the Most High by eating my food first. But no, the way that he kept the feast of Shavuot was by leaving the physical food and going to do spiritual work. And that's what the angel reported to the Most High. If you know, you know. It's all right here. Now, when I was Tobit 2. Now when I was come home again, and my woman Hannah was returned unto me with my son Tobiahu in the feast of Shavuot, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat. Shavuot feast, food, good dinner before him. And when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, go and bring what poor man soever ye shall find out of our brethren, who is mindful of Yahuwah, and lo, I tarry for you. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled and is cast out in the marketplace. Then before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, your feast shall be turned into mourning, and all your mirth into lamentation. Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him. Then you skip to Tobit chapter 12. Line 11, the angel telling them, surely I will keep close nothing from you, for it is said, it was good to keep close the secret of a king, but that it was honorable to reveal the works of Elohim. Now therefore, when you did pray, and Sarah your daughter-in-law, I did bring the remembrance of your prayers before the Holy One. And when you did bury the dead, I was with you likewise. And when you did not delay to rise up and leave your dinner to go and cover the dead, your good deed was not hid from me, but I was with you. And now Elohim has sent me to heal you and Sarah, your daughter-in-law. I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels which present the prayers of the Kodeshem and which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One. So Tobit had to leave his dinner, aka leave the carnality of the 6th covenant to elevate to the 7th spiritual covenant, which is what we have to do. Leaving behind the unleavened bread, leaving behind sleeping in a tabernacle to offer up the spiritual sacrifices, which is what the Most High actually wants us to do. And you could see the angel didn't report to the Most High and said, Tobit ate a great meal for Shavuot. The angel actually reported to the Most High. He left his meal to go do spiritual fruit to you, Abiyah. And here's his prayers and his good deed that he did. There it is right there. That's mind-blowing right there. That shows you. So the angels, if you think Passover is eating a lamb from the grocery store, and if you think that's righteousness, you have a zeal for Elohim, but it's not according to knowledge. We've all been there. But the point is to grow and to continue to evolve and to learn. You have a zeal for Elohim. Yeah, the Most High sees that you're trying, but if you think the angel is going to report to the Most High and say, Bob Smith's eating lamb from the grocery store, keeping Passover, you're gravely mistaken if you think the angel's going to do that. But the angel's actually going to report to the Most High and say, this brother is elevating to the seventh spiritual covenant, trying to bring his prayers and his spiritual sacrifices into the heavenly realm, which is immortal. We covered in Sirach 35 and 341 that these spiritual sacrifices are immortal. Matthew 6, lay not up for yourselves treasures in earth where moth and rust do corrupt, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust do corrupt and where thieves cannot break through and steal. Your spiritual sacrifices every day, morning, noon, and evening, never go away up there, and they are accounted for every single day. The Most High, Numbers 28, every day the Most High is saying, who brought me the calves of their lips? Who brought the continual ascending smoke offering morning and evening? And all the people who are showing up for the times of prayer, he's saying, Bob Smith, Alex Jones, blah, 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 blah. All of these people gave the morning and evening spiritual sacrifice. And then when it's a Shabbat, they're taking inventory in the heavens. You have the Abba Yahuwah, Yahusha HaMashiach, the high priest, and the angels are all working up there in the spiritual realm. And it's like at the end of the day, when you have a business, right? At the end of the day, if you own a restaurant, what do? You take inventory, you count the money, say, all right, what did we make today? That's what they're doing with the spiritual sacrifices every single day. The Most High's up there, and the angels are like the accountants of the Most High. They're the workers of the Most High, and the high priest, Yahushua HaMashiach, is right there. So the Most High is saying, all right, here's all these believers who are online saying, praise Yah, we're not being like Christians, we're keeping the Torah. Well, in the Torah, it says you got to offer up something morning and evening every single day. It's not a physical sacrifice, it's a spiritual. So all these people are saying, praise Yah. The Most High has a list and says, did Bob Smith show up for the time of prayer? No, he's not here. Did Alex Jones show up for the spiritual sacrifice? No, he's not here. But Donnie Jones, he showed up, and Sarah, blah, 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 showed up, and blah, blah, blah. They're taking inventory saying morning and evening. Yep. Spiritual sacrifice. And then on Shabbat, they say, all right, were they here for the morning's evening? Yep. Here it was. And then it's a Shabbat. Did they give up a Shabbat sacrifice? Yes, they did. It's a new month today. They're taking inventory. The Most High, Yahushua HaMashiach, and the angels are presenting the angels are presenting the prayers of the Most High, and the high priest, Yahushua HaMashiach, is on the right hand of Elohim, observing it all. And you have the opportunity to make sure all of your spiritual sacrifices are accounted for. Morning, noon, and evening, every day on the set apart days, they're up there taking inventory, checking it off. And the people online, we're keeping the Torah, keep the law, statutes, commandments. We're not being like Christians. But then when the Most High says, where's their spiritual sacrifice? They're not here. They're not here. They're on YouTube. They're on Instagram. They're everywhere but in the spiritual realm, doing everything but spiritual sacrifices, which is exactly what Satan wants you to do. The Most High is literally saying, where are the spiritual sacrifices? Taking inventory. They're not saying who ate unleavened bread, who slept in a tabernacle. They're not saying any of that. And we covered in 259 at the beginning of that episode, Sukkah means a covering. It doesn't mean a tent. A covering. Abba Yahuwah is our covering. He's our Sukkoth. We're abiding under the shadow, Psalms 91, of the Most High, the covering of the Most High. Your body, 2 Peter's, is a tabernacle. It's not about these physical things. The kingdom of Elohim is not food and drink. They're not up there in the spiritual realm saying who ate unleavened bread and who slept in the tabernacle. They are not doing that. They're saying who offered up a morning and evening sacrifice. Bob Smith, Donnie Jones, Alex Jones, they all did it. Check, check, check. Perfect. Who offered up his Shabbat spiritual sacrifice? Blah, 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 blah. They did it. Who offered up an unleavened bread sacrifice and a Shavuot sacrifice? Who did the spiritual sacrifices? They're not saying who ate unleavened bread. Just like in Tobit, Raphael did not appear to the Most High and say, Tobit ate a great meal. They said he did a spiritual sacrifice, and here's his prayers, his spiritual sacrifices. If you know, you know. It's all right here. This proves it. They're taking inventory up there. In the Torah, it never went away. It just became spiritual. He said, every single day, I want a morning and evening sacrifice. It went from physical to spiritual. It became spiritual sacrifices. So Abba Yah still wants that. Who showed up to the court of the Most High? Who offered up their spiritual sacrifices? On the evening of Passover, when it's the Pesach, it happens at the evening sacrifice. The Most High is seeing, all right, who's here in the lots? Who's here in the times of prayer? Who's here for the evening spiritual sacrifice? And who's in their kitchen eating lamb from the grocery store thinking that they're keeping it, puffing themselves up? You have a zeal for Elohim, but it's not according to knowledge. We have to grow. And yes, the Most High is gracious with us, but just like I said earlier, when he changed his address, when you change your address, sometimes they'll forward your mail, right? So people are still trying to mail stuff to the sixth covenant house of the Most High. For a year, they might forward your mail to the new house, the new covenant, the seven spiritual covenant house of the Most High. They might forward your mail, but after that year, they stop forwarding it. So yeah, there's a time to try and walk it out and try and keep these feast days physically. We've all been there, but this is the point, is to grow. You're not supposed to stay in the sixth covenant. You're not supposed to stay in the same place. You're supposed to grow and elevate and see what these spiritual sacrifices and these feast days and what the scriptures are really about spiritually. If you know, you know. I mean, I don't think I can explain it more, but they're taking inventory up there. They have a list every day, morning and evening, who showed up. And the angels, I'm telling you, they're like the little accountants. They're like, here you go, giving it to the Most High. And they're checking off. All right, Bob was here, Alex was here, Donnie was here, Sarah was here, blah, blah, blah. They're checking it off. And think of the thousands of people who have no idea about spiritual sacrifices. All they're seeing is the you-know-who saying, eat matzos and bitter herbs and sleep in a tent. I mean, bro, it's not good. It's really not good. And that's why we went so hard in the 5 previous episodes before this. And this is just adding on to it. I mean, it's all right here. Praise Yah. And as far as Shavuot, which I mentioned, it's the 15th day of the 3rd month. Another interesting, because I told you before about the date of Passover and the first day of the year and just those interesting number things, if you will. Another interesting thing about the 15th day of the 3rd month is this always happens on June 3rd. So it's the 15th day of the 3rd month. 15 is 1 plus 5 equals 6. 15th day of the 3rd month. 1 plus 5 equals 6 of the 3rd month. So it's 6 and 3. And it happens on June 3rd, 6-3. And again, yeah, so there you go. So there are some interesting things with the solar calendar. And like I said, the Most High has showed that it's good and pleasing. And even on Shavuot, in the last 2 years, in 2024 and in 2023, something significant and deliverance and relief happened to me on Shavuot, so-called 15th day of the 3rd month. So I find that day to be interesting. And again, verified and validated on the solar calendar. And these are the things as to the Most High showing, yes, this calendar is good and pleasing, and to use this calendar. That's what he told me. He said, be on this calendar. That's why I just stop and say, okay, I'm doing what he told me to do. And there's a 10-year spreadsheet. It's simplistic. It's spiritual. It's perfect. And it doesn't even have to be perfect. It's what the Most High wants us to do. I'm doing what he told me to do. He said, use these times of prayer. He said, use this calendar. But that's something else you can remember about Shavuot, 15th day of the 3rd month, and it happens on June 3rd. It's the same numbers. So it's interesting. It truly is. It's simple. And this is how you can keep it straight in your mind. And I know it's overwhelming. I know it's a lot of information in here, but the only way you're going to understand is to simplify it and to do it for yourself, to get onto the solar calendar. And I always said, how did I learn it? Was by living on it. I've been on it for over 3 years now. That's how I have an understanding about the dates and how it works. And you're going to learn by being on it. And that's why I said, just try it. I said last year was a perfect year. Sabbath was on Sunday. You should have tried it. And it's not to make you feel bad, but if another year has passed and you just are hearing these episodes, but you're not taking action, you're not listening, I mean, that's why you're not growing. You have to take action and just try things, and you will feel if it's right and if it's not. And that's where I've gotten to, is I know what feels right. I know what's good. I know what the Most High told me to do and what he told me to avoid, like lunar calendars. And I was on this Saturday Sabbath when I first came into the truth. I knew that wasn't the way. I know that's not the way. It's a solar calendar is pleasing to the Most High. So you got to just try it and learn, and print out the 10-year spreadsheet, EnochCalendar.com. Print the 10-year spreadsheet so you have it. Print the times of prayer spreadsheet as well. Linktree.com/WilsonRyan __. Print the times of prayer spreadsheet And you can use the same times of prayer year after year, and it's East Coast time, and it's approximate like we covered earlier. All right, and let's get back to Romans chapter 14. We covered earlier 17 and 18. For the kingdom of Elohim is not meat and drink, but righteousness and peace and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh. For he that in these things serves Mashiach is acceptable to Elohim and approved of men. So let's go a little bit earlier in this chapter, and this is going to pertain to the calendar and the feast days as well. Romans chapter 14, line 5. One man esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. So, before we continue on, like we've explained and like the House of Wisdom brought out, and we spoke about this in 250, and just throughout the podcast series, is the Feast of Tabernacles is the true Feast of Dedication. So again, the reason why there's, in the Torah, we covered in Numbers 28 and 29, you had Passover, unleavened bread, Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Feast of Tabernacles, right? And why do you have set apart days in the first month and in the seventh month? Because the first month is the start of the year. So you dedicate yourself to the Most High for another year of worship. And then in the seventh month, you rededicate yourself to the Most High for another 6 months of worship. The first part of the year and the second half of the year. That's why the set apart days are in the first month and the seventh month. And then in the middle of that, in between those times, you have running up spiritual fruit, Shavuot, and you just run up spiritual fruit all throughout the year, like we covered in 341 and just in general, right? That's why it happens in the first and in the seventh month. And like the House of Wisdom brought out, is Feast of Tabernacles is the true Feast of Dedication. Why? Because you're rededicating yourself to the Most High at the start of the second half of the year. Your body is the tabernacle, so you're cleansing the temple, cleansing the tabernacle for another half year of worship. That's when the true Feast of Dedication is. So as far as one man esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike. This isn't talking about the Levitical feast days of Passover, unleavened bread, trumpets, Day of Atonement, and tabernacles. That's not what this is talking about. As for, like, because what you hear online and what you see is the Maccabean Feast of Dedication. People think Feast of Dedication is in the 9th month or whatever from Maccabees. That's a day of remembrance, which I'm about to speak about. And then you also see in the 12th month Purim from the book of Esther and additions to Esther. That's what this verse where it says, one man esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike, let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. These days, like the Maccabean Feast of Dedication, so-called, and Purim, this is what it's talking about. Those are not Levitical feast days. They're not in Leviticus. Those are days of remembrance where man ordained those days. The Maccabean dedication and the Purim, those were... Men said these should be days of remembrance, and the Most High just said, okay, that's fine. I'll allow this to be days of remembrance. So you don't have to keep I don't keep the Maccabean Feast of Dedication anymore because Feast of Tabernacles is the true Feast of Dedication. There's no point in keeping Maccabees Feast of Dedication in the 9th month because when you do it correctly, you do it in the 7th month for the Feast of Tabernacles. And I don't keep Purim anymore either. Why? Because I'm fully persuaded in my own mind. One man esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. He that regards the day regards it unto Yahuwah, and he that regards not the day to Yahuwah, he does not regard it. He that eats to Yahuwah, for he gives Elohim thanks, and he that eats not to Yahuwah, he eats not and gives Elohim thanks. Right? So the reason why I don't reckon those days is because I'm giving more reverence to the Levitical feast days of the Most High. Passover, unleavened bread, Shavuot, and then Tabernacles, Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Trumpets. Those are what the Most High commanded us to keep in Exodus 34. The Most High commanded those. Most High did not command the Maccabean Feast of Dedication, and the Most High did not command us to keep Purim. The Most High allowed those to be days of remembrance. If you choose to do it, you're regarding it. He that regards the day regards it unto Yahuwah. So if you keep the Maccabean day as a remembrance, you're regarding it to Yahuwah. And Purim, you're regarding it to Yahuwah. And he that regards not the day like I do to Yahuwah, he does not regard it. Because I'm saying, Abba, I'm giving you the reverence. I'm giving your feast days in Leviticus Passover, unleavened bread, Shavuot, trumpets, Day of Atonement, and tabernacles, I'm giving those the utmost respect. And those other days of remembrance, I don't have to keep the Maccabean Feast of Dedication because I'm keeping the true Feast of Dedication and Tabernacles. I don't have to remember the day of Purim. You don't have to do it. If you do it, give glory and praise on the Most High. And if you don't remember those days, give glory and praise on the Most High by not doing it. That's what these verses are talking about. So you have free range. In Leviticus, the ones that we covered in Numbers 28 and 29, Passover, unleavened bread, Shavuot, trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Tabernacles, you have to keep those. They're commanded of you. And then you have free range for like you can have your own, like, for example, I said this before in 250, like with the day that you were born, like if you don't regard it, you're regarding it to the Most High because you're saying, I don't even want to think about this day. I'm giving all glory and praise to the Most High. But if you do regard it, not having a birthday party, not posting on social media, not telling anyone about it, not having a cake, not receiving gifts, making yourself an idol like they do in the abomination. But if you know this day is your birthday and you don't have to pretend like it never happened, that could be a day of remembrance between you and the Most High. You don't even have to tell anyone about it, but you could say, Abba Yah, thank you for allowing me to see another year. Thank you for bringing me here on this day. I'm grateful to be alive. That's a day of remembrance between you and the Most High. Again, not having a party, not getting gifts, not eating cake, not saying it's your birthday, not posting on social media or doing it for anybody else. But if you in your secret place of the Most High, abiding under a shadow, Psalms 91, on that day, if you remember this is the day that you're born, there's nothing wicked about remembering it and saying, glory and praise to you, Abba. Thank you for bringing me here on this day. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for another year. There's nothing wicked about that because you're giving glory to the Most High. That's what it says. If you regard the day, regard it to Yahuwah. Give glory and praise to him. And if you don't regard the day, to Yahuwah, you do not regard it. Give him glory and praise and say, forget, I'm nothing, Abba. I don't even care about that. Like, that's what it's saying. And same thing on the day that you get married. And we covered what true marriage is, TPR 345, marriage consecrated, the last episode before this one. On the day that you met your wife or the day that you consecrated your marriage or whatever, if you want to remember that day, again, not posting on social media saying it's our anniversary, getting each other gifts and making each other idols and telling everyone about it. But if you and your wife secretly want to pray to the Most High together and say, thank you, Yah, for blessing us with this marriage on this day or bringing each other into our lives on this day, giving glory and praise to him, that's what it's talking about, either regarding the day or not regarding it, saying we don't even remember. But again, if you remember your birthday, like you don't have to pretend like it didn't happen. And if you remember the day that you consecrated your marriage with your wife or you met each other, you don't have to pretend it didn't happen if you give glory and praise of the Most High, not making yourself an idol, not doing gifts and doing what the world does for anniversaries and birthdays, not doing what the world does, but doing it righteously, giving glory and praise of the Most High and being humble and thankful. That's what these days of remembrance are. And same thing with like the Maccabean Day of Remembrance and Purim. If you want to do that, you can. But if you don't do it, you're giving, and the reason you're not doing it is to give glory and praise to the Most High's feast days that he commanded in the Torah. That's why I take that approach. So that's what it means about, regarding the day, not regarding the day. Line 7, for none of us lives to himself, and no man dies to himself. For whether we live unto Yahuwah, and whether we die unto Yahuwah. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are Yahuwah's. For to this end Mashiach both died and rose and revived, that he might be Adonai both of the dead and living. Right? So hopefully that makes sense, and I just wanted to explain that a little bit further. And this whole chapter is commonly taken out of context and perverted, and I don't even want to go through all the other lines and keep going, but what we covered should have been enough for you to understand about the set apart days and why the Levitical commandment, Exodus 34, are the true 10 commandments, the true feast days of the Most High commanded by Abba Yah. And like I said, in Purim, they just said, all right, let's make this a day of remembrance. And the Most High agreed and said, okay, you can make this a day of remembrance. Like you could say, all right, my birthday, the day that I was born, is a day of remembrance. And the Most High will say, okay, if you give glory and praise to me, I'll look favorably upon that. And same thing with the day you consecrated your marriage. If you give glory and praise to the Most High and are being humble and thankful to him, and like I said, you don't even have to tell anyone. Like I said, like for me, I remember the day that I was born, but I don't post and say, hey, it's my birthday. Like, of course not. I don't acknowledge it at all in the world, but in my secret place with the Most High, if I glorify and praise him and say, thank you, God, for bringing me here for another day, I could do that. Another example I gave is I remember the date that I was physically rebaptized in 2020. And again, it's really about spiritual baptism through the spiritual sacrifices. But nevertheless, I was physically rebaptized in 2020. And I remember that day, and it was spiritually powerful. Even if it might have been wrong or incorrect, it was still spiritually powerful at the time. And even now, still. And then 1 year later on that same day, something very significant happened. I think that was the day when I found the House of Wisdom a year later on the same day that I was physically rebaptized, which is crazy. And if it wasn't, it was right around there, but I'm pretty sure it was. And something else significant happened on the 1 year after I was physically rebaptized on that day. So that day is like a day of remembrance. Again, for me and the Most High, I don't post about it or say blah, blah, blah. It's just between me and the Most High and say, thank you, Yah, for allowing me to get rebaptized on that day. And other things that happen, it's a spiritual day of remembrance between you and the Most High, or you and your wife and the Most High, but not for social media, not to get gifts and to do what the world does. Absolutely not. So that's what those verses mean. All right. So I think I'm going to finish this episode up with Romans chapter 10. I mentioned this a bunch in the 5-pack of episodes. I do believe I read this and broke these verses down in TPR 253, Bread Tabernacle. I know I read the whole chapter at the end of TPR 270, Famine of the Word. So I brought this out. And like I said, I referenced it in the 5 episodes before this one. Definitely go back and revisit or just go through the 5-pack of episodes, 341 to 345. The episodes are meant to be revisited. There's a lot in there. You'll get more out of it if you listen multiple times. And Most High willing, in the next episode, we're going to continue to build upon the 5-pack, is specifically 342, Spiritual Revelations. We're going to speak a little bit more about that and just some other things. So listen to 341 to 345. This is TPR 346. Most High willing, we'll be back for another episode, 347, just continuing to build. So understand these points, revisit it if you have to. Revisit this episode and take some notes if you have to, writing down the dates of, like I said, the spring equinox, the first day of the month. Write it down if you have to and start to learn it for yourself. Print out the 10-year spreadsheet, print out the times of prayer, linktree.com/WilsonRyan__. Another thing about the calendar is, as for the months, they follow this format: 30 days, 30 days, 31 days. And you do that 4 times throughout the year. That's how you end up with 364 days. So the first month is 30 days. The second month is 30 days. The third month is 31 days. It goes 30, 30, 31 days, 30, 30, 31 days, 30, 30, 31 days, 30, 30, 31 days, 364 days. That's the format that the months follow. So again, write that down if you have to. And like I said, you will know when every single feast day is, because I told you, if the spring equinox is always March 20th. The first day of the year is the day after that, March 21st, 321. Passover is always April 3rd. The first Shabbat of the year is always March 24th, and then March 31st, and then April 7th, April 14th. Oh, and just continuing that format. Passover is always April 3rd. The first day of unleavened bread is always April 4th. Last day of unleavened bread is April 10th. Shavuot, 15th day of the 3rd month, June 3rd, right? So you can see, and I'll just give you the fall feast days too. Why not? Since I'm here and saying it. September 19th, Feast of Trumpets. September 28th, Day of Atonement. And then October 3rd is the first day of Tabernacles. October 10th is the last day of Tabernacles, the great 8th day. So there you go. You have everything that you need to understand the calendar in this episode and to just try. And we're going to read Romans chapter 10. Like I said, revisit the 5 episodes before this one. Revisit this episode. I know it's deep. I know it's all over, but the only way you're going to understand it is to simplify it and to walk it out for yourself and to understand it. It's all spiritual. If you show up 3 times per day, morning, noon, and evening, you will always be there for the 3 times per year. And just to quickly get that as well, Deuteronomy 16:16, and we covered this in 341. Deuteronomy 16:16. 3 times in a year shall all your males appear before Yahuwah Elohaka in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of Matzah, and in the feast of Shavuot, and in the feast of Sukkot, and they shall not appear before Yahuwah empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of Yahuwah Elohaka, which he has given you. So again, these are the 3 times per year. It doesn't say about the Maccabean, Feast of Dedication, or Purim. These are Abba Yahuwah's commanded times. 3 times in a year shall all your males appear before Yahuwah Elohaka in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of Matzah, and in the feast of Shavuot, and in the feast of Sukkot, and they shall not appear before Yahuwah empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of Yahuwah Elohaka, which he has given you. He wants you not to appear empty. So if you're in your kitchen eating physical food, you're empty-handed. He wants you showing up with your hands full of spiritual sacrifices, spiritual fruit. Run it up through Yahushua Mashiach, the high priest, and make those angels, those accountants, work up there saying, look at all these spiritual sacrifices that these brothers and sisters are giving you. Abiyah, run it up there. That's Most High said, do not appear before Yahuwah empty. Spiritual sacrifices is what he wants. This just proved it. And we'll go through Exodus 34 as well. Exodus 34:23. Thrice in the year shall all your men children appear before Adonai Yahuwah, the Elohai of Yasharel. And Deuteronomy 16:16 shows that it was the feast of Matzah, the feast of Shavuot, and the feast of Sukkot, right? Which is all spiritual. So this is how you keep the feast days, is show up 3 times per day, and you will be there for the 3 times per year. And understand and watch TPR 269, Feast Days Visual Breakdown. It's on, if you listen on Spotify, you can watch it on Spotify because it's a video podcast on Spotify. And if you don't listen on Spotify, go to 269, and in that episode description, there's a link to a video on my Instagram where it shows a visual breakdown of the feast days. So again, it's super simplistic. You have to understand that there's the feast in the first month and the 7th month. And then on, just like we covered in Numbers 28 and 29, you had a daily sacrifice morning and evening, and then it went through on a Shabbat, you have an additional sacrifice. So 3 times on a Shabbat, morning, noon, and evening. And then it said on a new month, you have an additional new month feast day. So 3 times on a new month, morning, noon, and evening. And then it said Passover happens at the evening sacrifice. So you got that covered. And then on the first day of unleavened bread and all days of unleavened bread, you have an additional unleavened bread sacrifice. So you show up morning and evening every day. And then the noontime spiritual sacrifice can be your unleavened bread sacrifice. Or if you do it at morning, noon, and evening, whenever. And then for the Feast of Shavuot, the 15th day of the 3rd month, you have an additional Shavuot spiritual sacrifice. So morning and evening like you do every day, and then noontime spiritual sacrifice for Shavuot. And then on the first day of the 7th month, that's a new month feast day. So morning, noon, and evening for the new month of the 7th month. And then on the 10th day of the 7th month, the Day of Atonement, it said bring a spiritual sacrifice. So morning and evening like always, and then additional noontime spiritual sacrifice for the Day of Atonement. And then all the days of tabernacles, each of those days, a feast day, a morning and evening sacrifice, and then tabernacles spiritual sacrifice 3 times per day equals 3 times per year. There it is. And what you do every day, morning and evening, like we covered in 341, morning and evening, you do sin and trespass offering for the darkness to get the dark side spirit of sin off you for all things that you've done knowingly or unknowingly, breaking the Torah. And then you praise the Most High with the peace and thanksgiving offering. And like we covered in 341, the peace offering is an umbrella term. That's how you can be covered for the feast days, because all the feast day sacrifices fall under, if you do a sin and trespass offering, peace and thanksgiving offering, those spiritual sacrifices will fall under even for the feast days as well. So that's what you do every day, morning, noon, and evening. Peace and thanksgiving offering, sin and trespass offering, morning, noon, and evening 3 times per day. You'll be there 3 times per year. And understanding how it works, Numbers 28 and 29. I think it's super simple, but it's because glory and praise of the Most High, I've been in the scriptures and understand them. So I think it's super simple and easy to remember. Every day is morning and evening. And then on a Shabbat, you have an additional one. On a new month, you have an additional one. On Passover, it's at evening. On the days of unleavened bread, you have an additional one. On the Day of Atonement, you have an additional one. On Shavuot, you have an additional one. And then on the Days of Tabernacles, you have an additional one in addition to the morning and evening that happens every day. And on the Shabbat, you have an additional one. And on the new month, you do. So it's super simple. And what you'll see in 269 Feast Days Visual Breakdown is that you have the spring feast days, the fall feast days, the first month, the seventh month. And then on a weekly basis, you have the Shabbat. And on a monthly basis, you have the new month. So those are the consistent feast days throughout the year. Once a week Shabbat, once a month new month, and then in the first month and the seventh month, it's super dualistic. And in the middle of that, running up spiritual fruit between the fall and the spring feast days and the spring and the fall feast days, run up spiritual fruit all throughout the year. It's super simple. 269 Feast Days Visual Breakdown, combined with this episode, combined with the 5-pack of episodes before this, and all praise and glory to the Most High. If you have any questions, send me an email, pod.tpr@gmail.com. All praise to the Most High. Keep the feast days differently this year, beloved. Do it spiritually. Do it differently than you have, and it's trial and error, and watch the Most High answer you, because you're not showing up empty-handed, but you're showing up with spiritual sacrifices. That's what the feast days are. I hope that I did a good job of explaining it in this episode. Praise the Most High. Hallelujah. Amen. Most High willing, I'll catch you for another episode shortly, but I'm going to give this time to run and time for you to check out the 5 episodes before this, and Most High willing, we'll be back continuing to build in TPR 347. Yah willing, this is 346, and listen to 341 to 345. 341 is now the best place to start. Season 7, 7th Covenant, that is the best place for anybody to start, because you can go forward to these episodes and see where we're building to, and there's references backwards if you're new here to see what you might have missed. So 341 is the best place to start. Glory and praise of the Most High. Praise Abba Yahuwah the Father, the righteous, forever and ever. Hallelujah. Praise Abba Yah through Yahusha HaMashiach, the righteous, the high priest. Hallelujah. Amen. Praise Yah forever and ever. Much love, beloved. Be strong. Be meek. Be humble. Let the Most High rise you up and elevate you to the 7th spiritual covenant. All praise to the Most High. Hallelujah. Amen. And I always say this is a perfect time to try something new. That's why the new month is in the spring, because things are coming alive. Everything's coming alive. It's the time to dedicate yourself to the Most High. Let's take the spiritual leaven out of ourselves and spiritually dedicate ourselves to the Most High for another year of worship. This is a perfect time to grow, beloved, to flourish, to let the Most High grow you and flourish you and bloom you. All right. All praise to the Most High. Dedicate yourself to the Most High. Grow, learn, be humble. Humble yourself and let the Most High rise you up. Those that humble themselves will be exalted. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Let the Most High grow you, flourish you, bloom you, rise you back up, and elevate to the 7th spiritual covenant. All praise to the Most High. Praise Abba Yah, Yahuwah through Yahusha HaMashiach, the high priest. Hallelujah and Amen. Romans chapter 10. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim for Yasharel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Elohim, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim. For Mashiach is the goal of the Torah for righteousness to everyone that believes. For Moshe describes the righteousness which is of the Torah, that the man which does those things shall live in them. But the righteousness which is of faith speaks on this wise. Say not in your heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is to bring Mashiach down from above. Or who shall descend into the deep? That is to bring up Mashiach again from the dead. But what says it? The word is nigh you, even in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. That if you shall confess with your mouth Adonai Yahusha, and shall believe in your heart that Elohim has raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. For with the heart man believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto Yeshua. For the scripture says, whosoever believes on him shall not be ashamed. For there is no difference between the Yahudi and the Yavini. For the same Yahuwah over all is rich unto all that call upon him. For whosoever shall call upon the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the Besorah of peace and bring good news of good things. But they have not all obeyed the Besorah. For Yeshayahu says, Yahuwah, who has believed our report? So then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Elohim. But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. But I say, did not Yasharel know? First Moshe says, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation I will anger you. But Yeshayahu is very bold, and says, I was found of them that sought me not. I was made manifest unto them that asked not after me. But to Yasharel he says, all day long I've stretched forth my hands unto a disobedient and gainsaying people. Yeshayahu 40:28. Have you not known, have you not heard, that Elohai Olam, Yahuwah, the creator of the ends of the earth, faints not, neither is weary? There is no searching of his understanding. He gives power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon Yahuwah shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Yeshayahu 41:13 and 14. For I, Yahuwah Elohaka, will hold your right hand, saying unto you, fear not, I will help you. Fear not, you worm Yaakov, and ye men of Yasharel, I will help you, says Yahuwah, and your Redeemer, the Holy One of Yasharel. Love.